Chapter 30-29. This time, Yi Qinghan had chosen a secondary universe that was not controlled by a sage. Even if the Chaos Heavenly Domain's order nomological logos discovered him, it would not dare to act recklessly. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan had fused with Supremacy Yi, and his cultivation was clearly above the sages. The Chaos Heavenly Domain of this secondary universe would not dare to act recklessly and allowed him to pass through. After passing through the secondary universe's Chaos Heavenly Domain, Yi Qinghan's heart was still heavy. However, the divine bird quickly reacted and separated from Yi Qinghan's soul. His white battle robes fluttered in the wind, and he had the demeanor of a young hero. However, his eyes were wretched no matter how one looked at him. Boss, I can guarantee that the primordial yin-yang is definitely not in the ancient immortal subrealm, but in the purple sun subrealm or the sky surveyor subrealm. Our current location is in the sky surveyor subrealm, which is the subrealm that old man Feng Yu is in. However, there are 4 old monsters in this subrealm: Sage Xiaoyu, Sage Tianzong, Sage Turtle, and Sage Feng Yu. We have no grudges with Sage Xiaoyu and Sage Turtle, so this place is relatively safe. Supremacy Ye's analysis was clear and logical. He counted with his fingers and said, now that old man Feng Yu is half crippled, he doesn't even have the experience to meddle in other people's business. Therefore, we have no obstructions here and can search for the primordial yin-yang with peace of mind. Yi Qinghan nodded, then shook his head and said indifferently, if we want to find the primordial yin-yang, we still need the local forces. If we search for it ourselves, we'll only alert the enemy. However, the forces with some ability are already controlled by the people of the 4 great holy lands. I'm afraid it's not reliable for us to use their people to search for it, Supremacy Yi reminded him. Along the way, Yi Qinghan pondered for a long time. After searching for half a day, he found that this secondary universe was truly an undeveloped wilderness. There wasn't even a decent progenitor here, and resources were scarce. Even the Holy Land couldn't be bothered to manage this place, so it had become an area that the Holy Land didn't care about. It was a complete mess, with wars and turmoil everywhere. Perhaps it was due to the constant chaos of war, but there were many middle-level characters here. There were several hundred people at the level of the Taigu Emperor, but there were fewer demi-ancestors. There were only 6 or 7 of them in total, and they were all fighting for themselves. Therefore, this secondary universe was divided into 7 largest forces, and each of them was ruled by a demi-ancestor. No one cared about them, and they were all happy and carefree. A bunch of trash. Yi Qinghan watched as they fought all day long. He didn't know why. The 7 half-martial ancestors only knew how to enjoy themselves. They didn't do anything. It would be foolish to ask them to help find someone. Why don't we kill them all and support one of them to unify this secondary universe? Supreme Yi suggested. Yi Qinghan shook his head. If he killed 7 half-martial ancestors in an instant, it would definitely cause panic. It might even attract the attention of the Holy Land next to this secondary universe. This secondary universe continued to head north, and once he passed through it, he would enter the sphere of influence of the Turtle Ancestor Holy Land. Once he took this secondary universe into his hands, the Turtle Ancestor Holy Land would definitely be on guard against him. At that time, not to mention finding someone, even staying here would be a problem. I'll go find a very talented Taigu Emperor peak expert. With the progenitor origin energy, do you think he won't be able to enter the half-martial ancestor or progenitor realm? Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan seemed to be jumping through space. His figure flashed as he constantly shuttled back and forth, searching for talented people from various camps and chaotic battlefields. Now that Zhang Daoling had returned to the Quang Mansion to nurture talents, he had all the time in the world. In order to compete for territory, the 7 major forces were fighting each other, causing the secondary universe to be in a foul atmosphere. Many refugees were struggling bitterly. Yi Qinghan could only change the overall situation, but he couldn't save a single person or a single area. There were too many people, and he was too busy. Being able to unify the secondary universe was also a part of his merit. Yi Qinghan searched for a long time before finally finding a young man. He wasn't a member of the army but relied on himself to earn money. He had actually reached the beginner stage of the Taigu Emperor. He acted swiftly and decisively. His spear was invincible, and he killed people from thousands of miles away. He often wiped out a large group of 1,000 people by himself. It was common for him to fight across realms. Yi Qinghan paid attention to him for 7 or 8 days, but he didn't rest at all. He continued to fight as if he was in need of money. The money here was the common currency of the 3 subworlds. It was a substance diluted from the progenitor realm energy source. It was called the ancestral root. It wasn't something that could be found on the streets, so it was more valuable. One could extract the progenitor realm energy source from these ancestral roots. This young man could earn 100 ancestral roots if he took 10 orders. From them, he could extract a small piece of pure progenitor realm energy source. It was equivalent to 100,000th of a piece of progenitor realm energy source. It would take a lot of time to gather the energy of a piece of progenitor realm energy source. The young man held his spear and was covered in blood. He took out a package from his bosom. There were more than 3,000 ancestral roots inside. Although Yi Qinghan didn't think it was worth mentioning, the young man was very excited. He counted the ancestral roots over and over again, afraid that one would be missing. Hiss, clatter. Clatter. It was at this point that the warhorses and demonic beasts neighed, and the earth quaked. Experts were everywhere, ranging from primeval emperors to deathless golden immortals. There were at least 30 to 40,000 of them, and their goal was simple: to surround this young man. Lin Yan, you have earned enough, right? You killed more than 3,000 of my subordinates. Today, you will be buried with them. Boom. 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 6 experts of the Taigu Emperor level came from all directions. They were all experienced experts and definitely not the newly promoted Taigu Emperor. Their strength was comparable to Lin Yan's. With such an army, it would be difficult for him to escape. Hua. Lin Yan put away his ancestral roots and held his spear. He looked around coldly and said, Lu Yang, no one is paying for your lives. Why are you here to die? Ha 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 ha, the middle-aged man in the lead laughed disdainfully. Even an expert at the limit of the immemorial emperor realm would find it difficult to escape from such a large army. Lin Yan had just reached the immemorial emperor realm not long ago, but he dared to be so presumptuous. He was like a clown. Boom. At this moment, Lin Yan gripped his spear and stomped on the ground. His body turned into a beam of sword light as he charged towards the north. His spear pierced through an eternity golden immortal expert, but before he could break through the second layer of defense, he was sent flying back. Hua! Hua! Boom! Boom! The army was uniform and squeezed toward the center. The sky was sealed as they wanted to capture Lin Yan alive. TSK TSK TSK, Supreme Yi and Yi Qinghan stood side by side on a mountain in the distance. Supreme Yi said, Boss, this lad is not bad. Should we save him? It's a pity that his strength is too weak. I'm afraid it's impossible to cultivate him to the half-ancestor or ancestor realm in a short time. Yi Qinghan frowned. Supreme Yi shrugged and said, his talent is not bad. He relied on himself to reach this step by step. He's somewhat similar to you. As long as he is slightly promoted and supported by the ancestor realm energy source, with your combat experience and cultivation talent, it should be easy for him to reach the half-ancestor realm in a short time. Yi Qinghan hesitated for a moment. His figure moved and he left. Hua! A figure flashed, and as if his eyes were blurred, he directly abducted someone from the depths of the army. The army led by Lu Yang was stunned. Lin Yan, who had been surrounded, disappeared without a trace. What the hell? Where is he? Fuck. What happened just now? It was as if I saw space distort. The army was in an uproar. Lu Yang, a veteran expert of the Taigu Emperor, felt his hair stand on end. He felt a sharp pain in his spine. Is it the ancestor realm? Isn't there no ancestor realm in this secondary universe? Lu Yang muttered to himself in shock. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had already appeared in a main city countless miles away with Lin Yan. Lin Yan was so nervous that even his breathing was a little hurried. He looked at Yi Qinghan's back, who was standing on a lake. He was so nervous that he felt a little suffocated. Lin Yan did not know Yi Qinghan, but at this moment, he knew that Yi Qinghan was not an ordinary person. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Say, Senior. Thank you for saving my life." Yi Qinghan did not turn around and said coldly, "Introduce yourself, your family background, your cultivation process, and finally give yourself an evaluation." Lin Yan scratched the back of his head and looked at Yi Qinghan's back. He did not know what he was going to do, but he still introduced himself. Lin Yan's struggle was somewhat similar to Yi Qinghan's, but he had always been a lone wolf. He had no friends or partners. He had fought his way up, year after year, day after day, challenging and being hired. As for his family background, it was very simple. There were only old parents, a useless brother, and a young sister. He had been supporting the family all these years. After Lin Yan introduced his situation, he said seriously, "Self-evaluation. I think I'm a good young man with dreams, ambitions, ability, and filial piety. I can rely on my face to make a living, but I like to rely on my strength to make a living." "Good. I admire your shameless spirit." Supreme Yi clapped his hands and said. Lin Yan was shocked by Supreme Yi's sudden appearance. He retreated a few meters away and looked at Supreme Yi in shock. He could not tell that Supreme Yi was younger than him, but his cultivation was so much higher than his. Chapter 30. Lin Yan spoke very seriously, but the content of his words seemed a little shameless. However, it suited the divine bird's taste. "From now on, you will be my little brother." Supreme Yi patted his chest and said, "From today onwards, I will protect you. If anyone provokes you, just say my name, Supreme Yi." Lin Yan's pupils constricted as he looked at the backs of Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi. He was not ignorant. Yi Qinghan had caused such a huge commotion, challenging a sage with a non-sage status, and even severely injuring a sage. His name must be well known. You too are Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi of the Crazy Manor?" Lin Yan looked at Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi in shock. These two were legendary existences. He did not expect to have an intersection with an unknown rookie like him. Yi Qinghan nodded, turned around and said indifferently, "Are you willing to join the Crazy Manor?" Lin Yan was immediately excited. Joining the Crazy Manor was a great honor. The mansion master personally invited him. This was an unprecedented honor. Of course. Lin Yan rubbed his palms excitedly and nodded. Yi Qinghan looked straight at Lin Yan. He was very satisfied with his talent. As for his character, he had seen through most of it in the past 7 or 8 days. 10 years, only 10 years. I will provide you with resources and cultivation experience. I hope you can reach the ancestor realm. Don't disappoint me. Yi Qinghan said calmly. 10 years. Lin Yan looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. He had just stepped into the Taigu Emperor realm. Unless a miracle happened, it was impossible for him to reach the ancestor realm. Take me to your mansion. In these 10 years, don't go anywhere. Cultivate in peace. After reaching the ancestor realm, I need you to do something for me. It will be very dangerous. Yi Qinghan said in a serious voice. Lin Yan patted his chest and said, "I'm not afraid of danger. All these years, I've been wandering alone, stepping on the edge of death. If I can reach the progenitor realm, I'm not afraid of anyone unless the sage personally comes. Rest assured, Manor Lord." Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. This Lin Yan was still too young. In this vast world, other than the sages, there were many who could kill progenitors. If not for the divine bird, there would be many who could kill him. Whoosh! Lin Yan brought Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi back to the Lin family's courtyard. The Lin family was not big. There were only a few guards and a few maids. They were considered a rich family, but they relied on Lin Yan to make a living. The elder brother of the Lin family, Lin Fu, had an average cultivation level and could only stay at home to take care of the family. As for Lin Yan's younger sister, Lin Xiao, her talent was not bad, but she did not have any resources. Yi Qinghan chose to build a small house in the mountains behind the Lin family's courtyard. He marked out a forbidden area and prepared to train Lin Yan there. Yi Qinghan took out a low-level progenitor energy source and helped him refine it. Originally, people at the early stage of the Taigu Emperor realm were unable to refine progenitor energy source. Even the low-level energy source could cause Lin Yan to explode, but Yi Qinghan forcefully protected Lin Yan's body. In just 1 year, Lin Yan had endured hellish torture, but he had managed to endure it. The low-level progenitor energy controlled Lin Yan's cultivation level to the peak of the Taigu Emperor realm. Yi Qinghan began to share the cultivation experience of the Taigu Emperor realm with Lin Yan. He transformed into a god-devouring eagle and lowered his cultivation level to serve as Lin Yan's stepping stone. Lin Yan had been beaten up for several months, but his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds. He could now borrow Yi Qinghan's combat experience. With resources, cultivation experience, and a stepping stone, Yi Qinghan could refine Lin Yan to death if he couldn't cultivate another progenitor in a short period of time. Fortunately, Lin Yan had suffered enough over the years. Coupled with his strong willpower, he was able to resist Yi Qinghan's ravaging. Day after day, year after year. At this moment, primeval yin-yang was still mingling with Tao ancestor star defiance. As crazed manner grew stronger with each passing day, their sense of danger grew stronger and stronger. In the Purple Sun subrealm, at the border of the Firmament Sage's territory, a major power was quietly rising. They actually had 3 peak progenitor experts, and 2 of them had already comprehended a bit of the sage's power. When the 3 joined forces, they could sweep through a large area. If they surrendered to the sage, they would be infeft and become overlords. However, they were hiding in this border area, an area that no one cared about. The 3 of them wore masks and were publicly known as the 3 Chiefs of Tiger Mountain. They had snatched an unknown small secondary universe and could enter the Seeking Heaven domain through that secondary universe to search for resources. Among the 3 of them, 2 of them were old acquaintances of Yi Qinghan. Primeval Yin-Yang, Tao Ancestor Star Defiance, and the other peak progenitor was a native expert of the secondary universe. His cultivation wasn't inferior to these 2, and the 3 of them had formed an alliance. Sure enough, the 3 of them had met up again and seemed to have just returned from the Seeking Heaven domain. The 3 of them had returned to the Primal Chaos Heavenly domain and were all wearing masks. That person's identity was probably not simple. Did the 2 of you discover anything? Primeval Yin-Yang's identity was very easy to recognize. He was a man and a woman, and his yin and yang aura was very strange. He held the primeval yin-yang immortal sword in his hand, and his yin and yang aura was particularly strong. Tao Ancestor Star Defiance took off his mask. His eyes were somewhat sinister and extremely vicious. I explored the primal universe and floated inside for a while. I almost died there, but I made a big discovery. I found a divine cauldron on the 7th planet. It should be one of the 9 cauldrons, but I couldn't use the laws of order there to seize the sovereign's energy. I need the 2 of you to help me, Tao Ancestor Star Defiance said in a low voice. Tao Ancestor Star Defiance was outside of the 5 elements and also came from the 3rd planet. He could borrow a little power in the void of the 3rd planet, but he had to be very bold to dare to venture deep into the void of the 3rd planet. Primeval Yin-Yang exhaled a mouthful of turbid air as a strange look flashed in his eyes. In the primal chaos heavenly domain of the ancient immortal world, Daddy Divine Bird had been able to seize the sovereign's energy from the cauldron, which meant that there were still flaws for others to find. Primeval Yin-Yang had other ideas. His cooperation with Tao Ancestor Star Defiance and this native was definitely temporary and would definitely turn on them at the critical moment. The 2 of you go to the 7th planet first. I'll make a trip back to the ancient immortal world, hoping to find a way to seize the sovereign's energy, Primeval Yin-Yang said in a grave voice. Tao Ancestor Star Defiance already knew that Daddy Divine Bird had entered the primal universe and obtained the sovereign's energy. Thus, he didn't refuse. He gave the other peak progenitor a look, then left the primal chaos heavenly domain and entered the seeking heaven domain. The 2 of them joined forces and charged into the depths of the primal universe. Several days later, the 2 of them reached the primal universe, where Tao Ancestor Star Defiance came to a stop. He looked at the peak progenitor and said calmly, Primeval Yin-Yang can't be trusted. Once we get the sovereign's energy, we'll work together to get rid of him. No problem. But how should we split the sovereign's energy? The peak progenitor asked calmly. Ha ha ha, all 9 cauldrons have sovereign's energy. We'll only take 2 portions, 1 for each of us. Tao Ancestor Star Defiance laughed loudly. The peak progenitor frowned. Taking 2 portions wouldn't be that simple. There were still some sages and virtuous paragons hiding on the 3rd planet. If they were alerted, the 2 of them wouldn't even be enough food. Chapter 30-31. That peak progenitor was extremely cautious. As soon as Tao Father Star Defiance had suggested that they kill the primordial Yin-Yang, he had been on guard. The primordial Yin-Yang couldn't be trusted, and neither could Tao Father Star Defiance. However, Tao Father Star Defiance didn't give him any time to think. He headed straight for the 3rd planet, one of the 9 planetary systems. At that moment, the primordial Yin-Yang immortal world was stealthily approaching the ancient immortal world. However, the ancient immortal world was now guarded by the crazy manor. There were 4 experts stationed outside the chaos heavens, Shi Gu, Monkey King Qitian, Mu Zhuang, and Jiang Jingtian. The 4 of them were now peak progenitor realm experts. There was also a 3 million strong crazy manor army outside the barrier. It was impossible for anyone to enter the chaos heavens. The entrances to the Sky Seeker domain and the Sky Primal Chaos domain had been sealed. The only way out was to barge through the 4 experts and the military camp. The crazed manor had settled down for hundreds of years. They had stopped fighting long ago and were recuperating internally. In the north was the North Xiong Immortal Country and in the south was the Manhua Immortal Country. These 2 countries were now vassals of the crazed manor. With these 2 countries at the front lines, the crazed manor could sit back and relax. And now, Zhang Daoling had already snuck into the heaven-suppressing palace, running around the 6 places to help the crazed manor's experts improve their cultivation level and provide them with the saint's order for them to study. The heaven-suppressing palace was the base of Quang Manor, guarded by Gu Qingyu, Lin Wutian, Lin Mo, Yan Yunbei, Yi Tong, and the others. In the north were Yi Qinxing, Hua Lingtian, Li Peiza, and the others. The army was guarded by the Void Saint Chess. The south was guarded by Green Lotus Sword Immortal, Sua Shuguang, Charity Saint, Li Feng, Mo Li, Wu Jiang, and Yi Mengxi. The western war zone was guarded by Feng Huang, Si Wuxia, Su Zhan, Yi Qintian, and Desolate Lord Yi. The Yen Emperor was still alone on the human emperor's peak of the Yen clan. He was in the central position, ready to reinforce the Quang mansion at any time. All the elites of the Insane Manor were in charge of the 6 major regions. Zhang Daoling spared no effort and traveled to the 6 major regions all year round to explain the sage's Tao and share his insights. All the experts were focused on their cultivation. Although their cultivation progress was not at a rapid pace, their progress was quite fast. Especially the Flame Emperor's progress, which made Zhang Daoling blush with shame. This person was tainted by the Yellow Emperor's merit and virtue. His talent was heaven-defying, and he was full of luck. He forcefully increased his strength from 20% of the sage's strength to 40% in just 7 to 8 years. With Zhang Daoling's help, the Flame Emperor's cultivation speed was unimaginably fast. The Flame Emperor himself had great merit, so he didn't need the recognition of the common people. Because of the primal chaos of the secondary universe and the supreme merit of the Yellow Emperor, he might have an easier time reaching the sage rank compared to Yi Qinghan. Moreover, he had a chance to become a virtuous paragon. After cultivating for 100 years, many people's progress began to slow down. If one wanted to become a sage, it would take tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. This was because the experts of the insane manner were all top-notch. Aside from Flame Emperor, who had reached the level of the sage's first disciple with 50% of the sage's combat power, most of the others had only comprehended 10% to 20% of the sage's power. This was already a very exaggerated figure, and even Zhang Daoling was very satisfied. In at most 10,000 years, the Yen Emperor might step into the sage realm and be able to look down on all living beings. If he was fortunate enough to obtain heavenly merit, he might become a ruler. Zhang Daoling sighed. If the Flame Emperor could see through the relationship between the primary and secondary universes and help the primary universe, then even if the virtuous paragon suppressed by the 9 cauldrons revived, they would still have the power to fight. Whoosh! Zhang Daoling slowly walked through the insane manor immortal kingdom, wanting to find heaven-defying elites. This place was different from the 3rd planet. Because it was an era of cultivation all year round, their talents would only get better and better. However, it was already very difficult to find a cultivator on the 3rd planet. On this day, Zhang Daoling passed by Jingfan Mountain and subconsciously looked at the stone tablet at the foot of the mountain. It was actually carved by Yi Qinghan himself, so he walked up with light steps. Along the way, no one stopped him. It seemed that no one had come here for many years, but the stone steps were spotless and the spirit qi was dense. Whoosh! Halfway up Jingfan Mountain, in Zhang Fan's dojo, a woman dressed in linen clothes was sweeping the floor. Day after day, year after year, the dojo was covered in dust. Not even a speck of dust could be seen, let alone a fallen leaf. Jian Bugue, she was still guarding Jingfan Mountain. However, there were no experts left in Jingfan Mountain at the moment, only Jian Bugue was left. However, there were many orphans in the sect. Their parents died in the flames of war. There were both boys and girls. The oldest was around 12 or 13 years old while the youngest was a crying infant. The older children were taking care of the infants while the younger ones were playing by themselves. Jian Bugue seemed to be enjoying this atmosphere. While sweeping, he watched the children play with a happy smile in his eyes. In recent years, Jian Bugue had been traveling the mortal world to help the people of the world, but he didn't care about the merits of saving the children. Those without parents were directly brought to Jingfan Mountain to be raised. Zhang Daoling's aura was restrained. As soon as he arrived at the sect, Jian Bugue seemed to have noticed him. He held the broom and slightly bowed, "Greetings, esteemed sir. I didn't know you were coming and didn't come out to greet you, please forgive me." Zhang Daoling looked at Jian Bugue with shock in his eyes. He's already a virtuous sage but no sage power. His merit is subdued and his strength is imperceptible. He'll definitely become a virtuous paragon next year. I didn't think there would be someone with such a state of mind here. Does Yi Qinghan not know? Zhang Daoling pondered while staring at Jian Bugue. Jian Bugue didn't seem to mind Zhang Daoling's stare. He knew that Zhang Daoling was a virtuous sage, so he gestured, "Since esteemed sir is here, why don't you sit down and rest for a bit?" Zhang Daoling finally reacted and quickly bowed. "Dao friend's state of mind is not as good as mine. Thank you for your trouble." Back then, Jian Bugui's aura had completely disappeared as long as the enemy didn't die. Now, he had sunk to a level where even Yi Qinghan couldn't look straight at him. Perhaps it was because of Zhang Fan's death that she no longer wanted to participate in the mortal world. She only wanted to use her own abilities to change the suffering of the world. Now, Jian Bugui's body was covered in a layer of faint golden light. Only sages could see it. That was merit, very pure merit, without any blemishes. "Esteemed sir, please." Jian Bugui gestured with his hand. The two stepped into the training ground. There were no sharp ripples in the huge training ground. Jian Bugui seemed to have forgotten that he was a cultivator and didn't teach these children. A few hundred children were playing in the training ground. Even if they saw a virtuous sage, they wouldn't be afraid because they didn't have the concept of hierarchy. Jian Bugui led Zhang Daoling to a pavilion at the edge and took out a pot of spirit tea. The fragrance was overwhelming. Zhang Daoling looked at the children and then at Jian Bugui, who was slowly sitting down. He asked in surprise, "Since Dao friend is a virtuous sage, why don't you cultivate the power of the virtuous sage to change and help more people?" Jian Bugui smiled and said crisply, "My heart is calm and I don't want to participate in the mortal world. Fighting will only make more people homeless. This is good." Chapter 30-32. Zhang Daoling couldn't find any flaws in his words at all. Doing nothing was doing something. The suffering caused by fighting with the sages was far more than the merit she would gain if she won the fight. This old man understands. However, there has to be someone to fight against those people. Otherwise, the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. How many people can one person save? Zhang Daoling said in a low voice. Jian Bugui sighed and said, "Humans will get tired. Along the way, I've watched Mansion Master Yi fight and I'm really tired. I know why he's fighting. He's too stubborn and wants to be perfect. He doesn't want to leave any regrets. But how can there be no regrets in this world? Rather than fighting with him, why don't we forget each other? I'll wait for him here. Maybe I'll reach that realm before him. Don't you think so?" Jian Bugui asked calmly. "Ha ha ha," Zhang Daoling laughed and said with certainty, "There's more than one path. Different paths lead to the same destination. No one has taken that step before. I don't know if your path will work, and I don't know if Mansion Master Ye's path will work. Since it's all a path, why don't we give it a try?" Jian Bugui smiled and nodded. Since she had made her choice, she didn't need anyone's approval. The two talked for a while and Zhang Daoling left. After Zhang Daoling left, he subconsciously looked to the right. But he didn't know the layout of Crazy Mansion, so he didn't say anything. Moreover, Jian Bugui's strength was already terrifying. Whoosh! The space distorted and Zhang Daoling left. On the right side of Jingfan Mountain, a figure appeared. It was Immemorial Yin Yang, who had disappeared for a long time. Immemorial Yin Yang had investigated for a long time before he found Jian Bugui's identity and location. But he didn't expect Jian Bugui to become a sage because of meditation. He also didn't expect himself to come knocking on his door. Humph! Immemorial Yin Yang sneered and walked towards Jingfan Mountain with the Immemorial Yin Yang sword in his hand. Whoosh! Immemorial Yin Yang was very fast and appeared on the mountainside of Jingfan Mountain. Looking at Jian Bugui who was feeding the baby, he chuckled. What a caring woman. If Yi Qinghan sees you, he probably won't be able to bear to see you die. You're much more useful than those 18 little gourds. Immemorial Absolute Yin and Immemorial Absolute Yang suddenly separated. Immemorial Absolute Yin covered her mouth and laughed sinisterly. Jian Bugui raised his head slightly. The baby in his arms had been frightened to the point of crying. Hence, he was slightly displeased. Yin Yang, don't scare the baby. Don't drag me into the matters between the two of you, Jian Bugui said softly as he coaxed the baby. Kakik, Primordial Extreme Yin's gloomy face looked very strange. If you accompany me to the Primal Chaos Heavenly Domain, I will spare these children and spare you. How about it? Primordial Extreme Yin said, covering her mouth. Jian Bugui shook his head and sighed. Sigh, why bother? Cut the crap. If you don't leave, I'll kill you until you do. The cold energy of the archaic extreme yang shot out in all directions. The sword moved through the void, directly attacking one of the children. The aura of the sword was enough to destroy this place. However, immemorial Yin Yang did not want to destroy Jian Bugui. Hence, he controlled the aura and stabbed towards a 5 or 6-year-old girl. The girl's black hair flew up. Her bright eyes looked at the sword chi of immemorial Yin Yang. She did not know that the other party wanted to kill her. In the blink of an eye, the tip of the sword was about to pierce her throat. Whoosh! At this moment, the void froze. It was as if time and space were frozen. Immemorial Yin Yang could not stab that sword. The little girl stood firmly on the spot. Looking at the immemorial Yin Yang sword in front of her, she actually wanted to reach out and touch it. Jian Bugui frowned. It was as if he was using his mind to control the surrounding space. His eyes flashed and he frowned coldly. He directly pushed immemorial Yin Yang back a few steps. Hiss hiss hiss, immemorial Yin Yang looked at Jian Bugui in shock. He even suspected that Zhang Daoling, who had just left, had not gone far. Instead, he was standing nearby. Who? Come out. Archean Yin Yang roared hysterically. Even if you're a sage, you can't stop me if I want to kill someone. It's best if you don't meddle in my business. If I accidentally kill Jian Bugui, Yi Qinghan won't be able to find me when he returns. Whoosh! Jian Bugui slowly stood up and handed the baby in his arms to a 12 or 13-year-old boy. He waved his hand and picked up a leaf. Immemorial Yin Yang, my heart is calm. If you leave, I will not capture you and send you back to the crazed manor. However, if you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me. Ha ha ha. Immemorial Yin Yang laughed and said disdainfully, even if Yi Qinghan came personally, he wouldn't dare to say that he could capture me alive. You. Whoosh. Boom. Jian Bugui waved his hand and gathered order in his palm. The leaf was accompanied by a special force and slowly floated towards immemorial Yin Yang. Ha 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 ha, immemorial Yin Yang and immemorial Yin Yang could not help but laugh. This kind of power wanted to hurt them. Jian Bugui's white jade-like palm gently slapped forward. It was as if the void and distance did not exist. It slapped directly on immemorial Yang's chest. Boom. Poof. Immemorial Yang's chest suddenly changed shape. There was a sweet taste in his throat and he spat out a mouthful of essence blood. The leaf was directly embedded into immemorial Yang's flesh. It was as if it had taken root and sprouted, growing into a small tree. It was a sign that life was slowly rising. Ah! Immemorial Yang roared in horror and tried to tear at the small tree. However, the small tree grew into a 1-meter-tall flaming tree. It was as if it was one with him. He could not tear it off at all. What kind of demonic technique is this? Immemorial Yang and Yin Yang fused together and tore at each other. However, he could feel the life in his body being taken away by the small flaming tree. After immemorial Yang and Yin Yang fused together, the small tree was surrounded by Yin and Yang. The 8 trigrams attached to it and became a divine tree. Ah! Immemorial Yin Yang roared in rage and slashed the small tree on his body. It was as if his arm had been chopped off. His face twisted in pain. You're courting death. Immemorial Yin Yang joined forces and stabbed at Jian Bugui's throat. Hum. Boom. Immemorial Yin Yang's peak attack reached Jian Bugui's throat. However, the void and time froze. No matter how hard he tried, he could not pierce through Jian Bugui's defense. You're a sage. Immemorial Yin Yang roared in horror. He did not expect Jian Bugui to be a sage. This was completely beyond common sense. Jian Bugui nodded lightly and reached out to grab the immemorial Yin Yang sword. This sword was a sacred item of the ancient immortal world. Now, it was just scrap metal. You can be considered a sage. Yin Yang, I tried to persuade you but you didn't listen. What a pity. Whoosh. Hum. The immemorial Yin Yang sword trembled violently and was forcefully snatched away by Jian Bugui. Your evil aura is too strong. I'll keep this sword for you. Go to Insane Manor and admit your guilt. Whoosh. Boom. Jian Bugui waved his hand and sheathed the immemorial Yin Yang sword. He stabbed it into a rock in the dojo. There was another sword on the rock. It was the sword of no return. It had not been unsheathed for a long time. No. I won't go. You, spare me. Immemorial Yin Yang wailed in horror as blood flowed from his body. Chapter 30-33. The immemorial Yin Yang master was dumbfounded. He had originally wanted to capture Jian Bugui to threaten Yi Qinghan, but who would have thought that such an authoritative figure would be captured alive by an unknown woman without any ability to resist? The power that Jian Bugui obtained was fundamentally different from the power of the saints in the secondary universe. This might have already surpassed the limits of cultivation. Just 2 simple moves were enough to render an ancestor powerless. Primordial Yin Yang's face turned ferocious. He wanted to fight back, but he no longer had the courage to do so. Jian Bugui looked at Primordial Yin Yang calmly and said, I've given you a chance. Since you don't want to cherish it, then let Quang Manor wash away your sins. No. No. You're already a saint, please don't kill me. Primordial Yin Yang begged in despair. Jian Bugui had been through too much and had seen too many people like this. She once offended Yi Qinghan for the sake of the 9 realm lords, but those realm lords never changed their minds. Now, Primordial Yin Yang was even more arrogant, making it even harder for him to change his mind. Hua! Jian Bugui waved his jade-like hand and suppressed the immemorial Yin and Yang, completely sealing his cultivation and cutting off all his thoughts. The arrogant man who ruled the ancient times was now walking right into a trap. It was truly laughable. Jian Bugui lightly snapped his fingers and turned into a sharp arrow that shot into the clouds. Then, he exploded in the sky and turned into a cloud of smoke. It was a beautiful sight. Jingfan Mountain was not far from the heaven-suppressing palace, not to mention that it was a message from a saint. Emperor Yi had been dealing with administrative matters and did not participate in cultivation. She knew that Jian Bugui was on Jingfan Mountain, and after receiving the news, she immediately brought a group of people to Jingfan Mountain. Emperor Yi was stunned when he saw the assassin Dao army searching everywhere for Primordial Yin Yang. Sister Bugui, this transvestite. Why is he here? Emperor Yi looked at Primordial Yin Yang, who was lying on the ground, and asked in shock. Jian Bugui smiled and said in a crisp voice, Sister Emperor Yi, he came to me of his own accord. You should take him back. I can't save a hopeless person either. Emperor Yi was overjoyed. She knew that Yi Qinghan was trying to capture Primordial Yin Yang, but she didn't expect it to be so easy. Thank you, Sister Bugui. I'll think of a way to inform my husband. Emperor Yi exhaled. He had even forgotten to ask such an important question as how Jian Bugui had captured the immemorial Yin Yang. Jian Bugui smiled and gestured with his hand. Bring her back. I still have things to do. I won't keep her. Thank you. Emperor Yi bowed slightly. Then, he dragged the immemorial Yin Yang down Jingfan Mountain and threw it into the army. Emperor Yi led the army and brought the ancient Yin Yang back to the heaven-suppressing palace and began the interrogation. Why did you go to Jingfan Mountain? What's your purpose? Emperor Yi asked solemnly. The primordial Yin Yang snorted coldly. His malicious eyes stared fixedly at Emperor Yi as he said with a sinister smile, "Little girl who is still wet behind the ears, you'd better let me go. Otherwise, there will come a day when I will crush Kuang Manor." Emperor Yi rubbed his nose and nodded thoughtfully. In a crisp voice, he said, "Oh. Looks like I'm still not as ruthless as my husband. Let me think about it. How can I make you more obedient and answer my questions straightforwardly? Men, inform the assassin Dao army's commander, Yan Yunbei, to come to the heaven-suppressing palace. I don't believe I can't make him talk." Emperor Yi waved her hand and ordered. Hua! Xiu. A silhouette left and moments later, a message was sent out from the heaven-suppressing palace. The message exploded in the sky and was followed by responses from all the major cities in the surroundings. In less than half a day, Yan Yunbei stepped into the heaven-suppressing palace. He was shocked to see primordial Yin Yang in the Hall of Justice. "Why is this fella here? Is old Yi back?" Yan Yunbei asked curiously. Emperor Yi smiled as he shook his head and said, "Big brother Yan, this old demon actually ran all the way to Jingfan Mountain. I don't know how big sister Bugui managed to capture him. Isn't she interrogating him now? Most importantly, I'm too embarrassed to be ruthless. Can you help me interrogate him?" Yan Yunbei smiled and shook his head. He sat on the chair beside primordial Yin Yang and said calmly, "Primordial Yin Yang, there's no need to go against me. You wouldn't have returned to the ancient immortal world and wouldn't have come to Jingfan Mountain for no reason. Do you want to tell me or do you want me to torture you?" Humph, primordial Yin Yang was not afraid of torture. He then raised his head proudly and looked at Yan Yunbei with disdain. Yan Yunbei slowly took out a dagger. One could even see poisonous bugs and corpse bugs swimming around the dagger. It was a horrifying sight. "Since you've chosen to suffer, I can't stop you. After I interrogate you and get the answers I want, I'll send you to Senior Yan Emperor. He might be more interested in you." Yan Yunbei said calmly. Immemorial Yin Yang's pupils shrank at the mention of the Flame Emperor. Indeed, he wasn't afraid of the crazy sect or even Yi Qinghan. At worst, he would die. However, he was afraid of the Flame Emperor. He had killed the entire Flame clan and even the 9-colored Brahma heart had died because of him. Who knew how the Flame Emperor would deal with him? Primordial Yin Yang took a deep breath and asked, "Wait. If I tell you, what benefits will I get?" Yan Yunbei replied calmly, "You'll die a painful death. At least you won't have to see Senior Yan Emperor again." Primordial Yin Yang's hair stood on end. He didn't want to die. Humph. What if I want to live? Primordial Yin Yang asked. Yan Yunbei smiled coldly and said firmly, "No matter what information you give me, you won't be able to get back your rotten life. The only thing I can do for you now is to let you suffer less. I'll give you a chance. If you don't cherish it, don't blame me for being impolite." Primordial Yin Yang snorted and said, "What about the information regarding the sovereign energy? You don't care. If you can't make the decision, why don't you let Yi Qinghan talk to me?" Yan Yunbei replied coldly, "My words are also the will of the crazy house. Do you think Yi Qinghan will let you go? Don't even think about daydreaming. That's right. Big Brother Yan has full authority over everything. Even if the entire universe is destroyed, you won't be able to get back your rotten life, let alone the sovereign energy," Emperor Yi said with certainty. Primordial Yin Yang laughed sinisterly, "You should know Dao Ancestor Star Defying. He's already found a way to enter the void of the origin universe. He's also outside of the 5 elements and seems to have a grudge against the crazy house. If you let me go, I'll tell you where he is and which cauldron he wants to steal the sovereign energy. Yan Yunbei frowned, but then said firmly, whether or not he steals the sovereign energy has nothing to do with the crazy house. Even if he does, I don't care. Do you think you can trade this information for your life? How laughable. Now tell me why you want to go to Jingfan Mountain. Primordial Yin Yang saw that Yan Yunbei wasn't willing to let go, so he could only back off. I want to enter the primal chaos heavenly domain and ask him how he obtained the sovereign energy. I want to take it for myself, Primordial Yin Yang snorted. Chapter 30-34. Primordial Yin Yang did not lie and there was no need for him to lie. Yan Yunbei looked at Primordial Yin Yang and his eyebrows twitched. If Tao Ancestor Star Defying and Primordial Yin Yang really obtained the ruler's energy, it would bring about a huge disaster. Where is Tao Ancestor Star Defying now? Where are they going to steal the ruler's energy? Yan Yunbei asked coldly. The immemorial Yin Yang laughed coldly. He had already smashed the pot to pieces. He found a chair and sat down. The rest of the information will have to be exchanged with my life. As I said, if you can't make the decision, you can find Yi Qinghan to negotiate with me. I refuse to believe that my life is more valuable than the sovereign's energy essence. Humph, Yan Yunbei sneered in disdain, since you want to talk to old Yi, I'll fulfill your wish. Just don't regret it. Yi Qinghan's ruthlessness was not something that Yan Yunbei and Yan Emperor could compare to. Emperor Yi, take him into custody first. I'll inform Senior Yan Emperor to come. Also, I'll inform the assassin army to contact old Yi. Yan Yunbei said sternly. Before Emperor Yi could reply, Primordial Yin Yang roared hysterically, didn't you say that if I tell you useful information, you don't have to see Yan Emperor anymore? Primordial Yin Yang was truly afraid of Yan Emperor because once Yan Emperor was here, all information would be useless. Wait. Don't look for him. Let us settle our grudges. I only want to see Yi Qinghan, not Yan Emperor. Otherwise, I won't talk to him anymore. Immemorial Yin Yang shouted hysterically as he watched Yan Yunbei continue to walk forward. He had completely lost control of himself. Yan Yunbei snorted in disdain. Meeting Yi Qinghan would be more painful than meeting Yan Emperor. He did not even know Yi Qinghan and yet he still insisted on meeting Yi Qinghan. Hua! Yan Yunbei left the heaven-suppressing prefecture and took over the assassin army. Many spies began to shrink back in search of Yi Qinghan. They could not expose Primordial Yin Yang's capture to avoid alerting the enemy. At this moment, 10 years had already passed. Yi Qinghan was cultivating bitterly while training Lin Yen. He had forcefully raised Lin Yen to the ancestor realm, and his combat strength was extremely good. Unify this secondary force and reorganize it. However, do not expose any traces of Kuang Manor. The first task Yi Qinghan gave Lin Yen was to unify this secondary universe and plant a needle in this secondary universe that could pierce the Sky Surveyor secondary universe at any time. Lin Yen heaved a sigh of relief. More than 10 years of hard work had not been in vain. He was going to take over the current era. After Lin Yen left the mountain behind the Lin family's courtyard, he killed a half-martial ancestor of a super force and suppressed his force with thunderous means, successfully taking over. After taking over a large force, Lin Yen began to reorganize it. As long as they were ruthless, even a motley crew could be trained into a useful army. Yi Qinghan only watched from afar for a while before letting Lin Yen do it himself. He then left this secondary universe and headed towards the hinterland of the Sky Surveyor secondary universe. The assassin army had long since opened up 3 secondary worlds. Each secondary universe had its own people. Yi Qinghan did not intentionally hide his location. Those who did not know him would not be able to recognize him even if they saw him. However, it was impossible for the assassin army to not recognize the Manor Lord of Quang Manor. Sky Surveyor Secondary Universe, Turtle Saints Territory. Not long after Yi Qinghan arrived, a very young man dressed in beast-skin clothes appeared before him respectfully. Manor Lord, the heaven-suppressing palace has sent a message for you to return immediately, said the young man respectfully. Yi Qinghan did not know these new members of the Assassin Corps from the secondary universe. Most of them were people who had developed themselves locally. Most of them only liked the money that the Assassin Corps had to pay. Every time they delivered a message, they would be rewarded with a lot of ancestral roots. It was even equivalent to a mission for Lin Yen. Under normal circumstances, the Quang Manor would not use these people. But today, something big must be happening. Yi Qinghan casually threw a few ancestral roots to the young man and said, I know. You did not see me today, understand? Yes. The young man bowed excitedly. Hua. Space twisted and Yi Qinghan disappeared from this territory. His figure flashed through space and even time and space avoided him. Yi Qinghan used Little White Cloud and worked together with Sovereign Yi. His speed was indescribably fast. What was supposed to take a few years was only half a year for Yi Qinghan to arrive at the North Xiong Immortal Country. His face was pale and the price he paid was huge. Yi Qinghan refined a piece of ancestral realm energy source. Then, he spent another half a day to cross the North Xiong Immortal Country and entered the Quang Manor Immortal Country. He did not rest at all and returned to the heaven-suppressing palace. At this time, Emperor Yi was interrogating Primordial Yin Yang day and night. However, Primordial Yin Yang was stubborn and refused to say a word. In the end, Yen Yunbei did not inform Yen Emperor. He was afraid that Primordial Yin Yang would give up. Yi Qinghan appeared in the main Emperor Palace. At this moment, Emperor Yi was interrogating Primordial Yin Yang. Seeing this transvestite in the main Emperor Palace, Emperor Yi could not help but smile bitterly. He spent so much effort to capture this transvestite but he was already captured. Who captured him? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. Emperor Yi saw Yi Qinghan's return and replied excitedly, Husband, Sister Bugui captured him. In order to enter the Chaos Heavenly Domain, he wanted to capture Sister Bugui to threaten the Quang Manor. Who knew that Sister Bugui would capture him alive? Yi Qinghan was stunned. When he first met Jian Bugui, he already felt that there was something wrong with her cultivation level. However, he did not expect it to be this ridiculous. Primordial Yin Yang was not afraid when he saw Yi Qinghan's return. Instead, he said excitedly, Ha ha ha, Manor Lord Yi, long time no see. Bang! Yi Qinghan casually stomped Primordial Yin Yang under his foot. The floor was crushed and Primordial Yin Yang's head was deformed. Long time no see. Yi Qinghan said calmly as he released his foot. Primordial Yin Yang was stunned by the stomp and did not speak for a long time. When Emperor Yi saw this, he immediately covered his mouth and snickered. This guy wanted to see Yi Qinghan before he was willing to talk. Great, now it was too late for regrets. Husband, he, Tao Ancestor Star Defying, and a peak progenitor are working together to covet the sovereign energy in the 9 cauldrons above the 3rd planet. Tao Ancestor Star Defying and that person have probably already entered the 9 star domains of the original universe and could steal the sovereign energy at any time. However, this transvestite wants to talk to you. We had no choice but to call you back, Emperor Yi said hurriedly. Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose and looked indifferently at Primordial Yin Yang. He said calmly, since you insist on talking to me, then just say it. Which planet is Tao Ancestor Star Defying after? Let me go and I'll give you the information. Boom! Crack! In response, Yi Qinghan viciously stomped down and broke Primordial Yin Yang's right leg. He then punched through his leg bone, and with a wave of his hand, a corpse bug appeared in his hand. This was something that Chu Shijun Xian had painstakingly researched back then. Its effect was a bit inferior to that of a peak progenitor, but it could indeed cause great pain. Ah! Primordial yin-yang let out a shrill roar as his entire body twitched in pain. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan once again took out the little white cloud and stuck it to his body. The little white cloud enveloped primordial yin-yang and blocked his senses from the outside world. He couldn't even absorb air or any other energy. This was a different kind of suffocating feeling. Woo-woo, boom. Primordial yin-yang roared as his entire body twitched and struggled frantically. I hate it when people haggle with me. Since you wanted to see me, I came. If you continue to make me unhappy, you will pay an even heavier price. Yi Qinghan stared at primordial yin-yang with a cold glint in his eyes. Chapter 30-35. Yi Qinghan didn't hesitate to crush primordial yin-yang's leg bone. Primordial yin-yang's face twisted in pain and his body twitched, but he couldn't resist. Yin-yang, it was your biggest mistake to want to see me. If you had been honest with my son, you wouldn't have had to suffer. Now that I'm here, you'll have to tell me even if you don't want to. I won't promise you anything. Yi Qinghan laughed coldly. Hiss! Primordial yin-yang sucked in several breaths of cold air, his eyes filled with rage. He growled, Yi Qinghan, I know you're ruthless, but I've lived for so many years. What kind of pain haven't I suffered? If you don't agree to my request today, then just wait for Tao Ancestor Starfall to obtain the Sovereign's energy essence. Yi Qinghan sneered and said coldly, so what if he obtains the Sovereign's energy essence? Is he stronger than Sage Fengyu? Go take a look and see if Sage Fengyu can still come out and fight. They're not alone. Besides, without the Sovereign's energy essence, the 9 cauldrons will collapse sooner or later. When that happens, all the sages of the secondary universes will swarm over. The 3rd planet, Think about it carefully. I'm not afraid of death. If you don't agree, then I'll die. At most, I'll suffer a bit more, Primordial yin-yang said coldly. Yi Qinghan frowned. He wasn't afraid of Tao Ancestor Starfall obtaining the Sovereign's energy essence, but he was afraid that Tao Ancestor Starfall would discover the 9 virtuous paragons of the secondary universes. If news of this leaked out, then there would be no end of trouble. Release Primordial yin-yang. Yi Qinghan was very firm on his decision. He couldn't release this person. Yan Yu and the ancient celestial emperor had already died, leaving only this transvestite. It hadn't been easy to capture him, and if he released him, he would never be able to capture him again unless he became a sovereign. You really like to test my bottom line. Yi Qinghan squatted down and patted Primordial yin-yang's savage face. Do you think that without you, I wouldn't be able to find Tao Ancestor Starfall's location? Ha ha ha, Primordial yin-yang laughed, then grinned smugly. They left the Skyseeker realm a few years ago and are probably already in the 9 stars field. If you don't make a choice, they'll probably obtain the Sovereign's energy essence. By then, it'll be too late to regret. The 9 stars Tao Ancestor Starfall was unable to obtain the Sovereign's energy essence. As for humans, they were to be at the peak of the progenitor realm. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to obtain the Sovereign's energy essence. As for humans, unless they were at the limit Ancest's realm, T-beat, S-2s, because it, to, S-T-T, T-T-T. To, S-2, S-2, to retrieve to, S-2, T. S-S. T-die, S-young, teat. T to 2s to the, T to T-test to him, S-him, to, with that, Emperor Yi left the main imperial palace. As long as you agree to let me go, I'll return the gourd to you with both hands. I'll also give you the exact location of Tao Ancestor Starfall. Yi Qinghan, is there still a grudge between us? I did use you, but I didn't cause much harm to Crazed Manor. Are you going to give up your own benefits for the sake of Emperor Yen? Primordial Yin-Yang threatened coldly. You want to use extreme saint thieving to steal the gourd? That's ridiculous. Why wouldn't I leave you with a way out? I dare say that as soon as extreme saint thieving appears in my yin-yang world, the gourd will die. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a sneer. He hadn't expected this yin-yang to still dare to threaten him at a time like this. Do you think I can't do anything to you? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. Primordial yin-yang replied confidently, yes. You can't do anything to me, which is why I asked you to come back and talk with me. Suffering a bit isn't a big deal. Being able to live is the best. You're wrong. I have 100 ways to deal with you to obtain the location of the gourd and Tao Ancestor Starfall, whoosh. Yi Qinghan grabbed Primordial Yin-Yang by the neck and lifted him up. He then fused with Autarkia's soul, causing his terrifying soul to wildly charge into Primordial Yin-Yang's sea of consciousness. Screech. Roar. Primordial Yin-Yang instantly howled in shock. My soul won't be able to hold on. If I die, the gourd will definitely die as well, and Tao Ancestor Starfall will break free from your control. Yi Qinghan. If you want both of us to suffer, I'll definitely fulfill your wish. Yi Qinghan tightened his grip on Primordial Yin-Yang's neck, radiating a cold light. Since I'm able to act arbitrarily, I naturally have my own methods. If you don't agree to my request, then don't even think about getting what you want. Primordial Yin-Yang howled hysterically. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan would truly cause both of them to suffer. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan let out a breath of turbid air, then casually placed Primordial Yin-Yang on a chair. Smiling, he said, "All right, I'll agree. As long as you give me the gourd and Tao Ancestor Starfall's location, I'll spare you." "I can't trust you," Primordial Yin-Yang said resolutely. "Let's go to the 9 stars domain together. When I deal with Tao Ancestor Starfall, you'll naturally have time to flee," Yi Qinghan said calmly. Primordial Yin-Yang's eyes flashed with cold light as he said resolutely, "You can go alone." Yi Qinghan nodded in agreement. Slap. Slap. Yi Qinghan waved his hand, undoing the seal on Primordial Yin-Yang's body, then gestured with his hand. "Give me the gourd, and I'll take you to the 9 stars domain. You should know how strong I am right now. Unless you're in the 9 stars domain, there's no way you'll be a match for me. You won't even have a chance to attack in front of me, so don't try any tricks." Whoosh! The Primordial Yin-Yang divine bird moved, and 2 gourds appeared in his hands. They were currently in a sealed state, so they didn't transform into the Taigu Emperor realm. "Take it, Yi Qinghan. Swear on the fate of Crazed Manor that if you find Tao Ancestor Starfall and don't let me go, Crazed Manor will definitely suffer the wrath of the heavens and be reduced to cripples overnight." Primordial Yin-Yang stared at Yi Qinghan, seemingly still worried about him. Yi Qinghan grinned sinisterly. "All right, swear on the fate of Crazed Manor. With the original universe as the witness, if Yi Qinghan finds Tao Ancestor Starfall and kills Primordial Yin-Yang, Crazed Manor will definitely suffer the wrath of the heavens and be reduced to cripples." Whoosh! Primordial Yin-Yang let out a sigh of relief. "Come with me. We're going to the 9 stars domain." Primordial Yin-Yang clenched his fists and said solemnly, "Let's go to Jingfan Mountain first. I want the Yin-Yang swords back." Yi Qinghan didn't object and left the heaven-suppressing palace with Primordial Yin-Yang. In the blink of an eye, they appeared on Jingfan Mountain and took the Yin-Yang swords with them. Yi Qinghan purposely slowed down his speed as he refined the progenitor's energy source to replenish his stamina while heading towards the 9 stars domain at the center of the original universe. With the little white cloud supporting Yi Qinghan's speed, even if he only used 20% of his strength, he was still faster than Primordial Yin-Yang. At the same time, in the heaven-suppressing palace, Emperor Yi transmitted a message, "Men, inform Senior Yen Sovereign and invite him to the 9 stars domain." Chapter 30-36 In the heaven-suppressing palace, Emperor Yi immediately sent someone to inform Yen Emperor. At the same time, Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven had arrived. Knowing that someone was going to steal the 9-star domain's ruler's energy source, his eyes widened. How did they enter the 9-star domain? Damn, this is good news for me. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven rubbed his hands, his eyes glowed brightly. His figure flickered as he chased after them without even asking. Hua! Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven's speed was akin to teleportation, leaping through space and arriving at the heaven-suppressing domain in an instant. In less than half a day, Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven appeared behind Yi Qinghan, hiding in the void. Although the primordial yin-yang did not discover Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven, Yi Qinghan still sensed his presence. Yi Qinghan glanced behind but did not say anything. He continued to venture deeper into the heaven-suppressing domain with the primordial yin-yang, heading towards the 9-star domain. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven's aura was concealed and his fingertips trembled slightly. He had long coveted the ruler's energy source, but since he could not fly in the 9-star domain, he did not dare to act recklessly. It would be best if Tao Ancestor Star Defiance could bring out the ruler's energy source. Then, I can wait here and steal it. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven's eyes flashed as he followed closely behind. With such speed, he would not be exposed at all. At this moment, Tao Ancestor Star Defiance and another Peak Ancestor expert appeared above the 9-star domain, floating slowly. They could borrow a little of the order laws, at least they would not die here. The Milky Way hung upside down like a waterfall. The two floated along the Milky Way and floated into the 9-star domain, appearing above the 7th planet. Borrowing a little of the sage's order laws, the two slowly descended. But just as they entered the 7th planet's airspace, their speed began to decrease rapidly. Hua! Tao Ancestor Star Defiance was an existence that did not belong to the 5 elements. His body turned into the void as he entangled the Peak Ancestor expert. The Peak Ancestor expert's face changed and he asked, "How do we return after we succeed? How do we go to other planets to take the other ruler's energy source?" Tao Father Star Defiance's lips curled up in a cold smile. He hadn't even considered going to the other planets to seize the hegemonic quintessence. Once he did, this peak progenitor would die. You'll know when we get there. Fellow Daoist, there's no need to be anxious. Since I've entered the 7th planet and made it out alive, there's naturally no way out of this place. What are you afraid of? Tao Ancestor Star Defiance said calmly. Whoosh! Boom! As soon as they entered the atmosphere of the 7th planet, the two of them were pulled into a flame and sank rapidly. The gravity here was several times stronger than that of the 3rd planet. If not for the two of them being able to borrow some of the sage's power, they would have fallen to their deaths. Now that Tao Father Star Defiance had the upper hand, he gradually stabilized the situation and led that peak progenitor to land on the 7th planet. There were pits everywhere, and there was even some ice on them. The temperature here was extremely low, and it was not suitable for humans to live here. However, there were some stacked objects that looked like walls, but that didn't mean that someone had lived here before. A bright light flashed through Tao Father Starfall's eyes as he took the initiative to walk off into the distance. That Ancestor Extreme Limit expert followed closely behind, the cold wind tearing at his battle robes, causing them to flutter loudly. There was an endless expanse of rocky land, with the occasional barren mountain range appearing. Let alone living creatures, there probably wasn't even a single microorganism. There's a giant valley up ahead, and one of the cauldrons is right in the center. That valley should have been created by the divine cauldron, but the cauldron is completely sealed. I've been searching for a long time, but I haven't been able to find a way to extract the hegemon's quintessence from within, Tao Father Star Defiance said in a low voice. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Rustle rustle rustle, the two of them walked side by side. There was no danger here, no powerful creatures, no black holes, and not even a primordial rift. There was only the cold wind. Tao Father Star Defiance and that peak progenitor joined forces to climb up the mountain range. As far as the eye could see, they saw a giant valley with a sunken center and protruding sides. At the center of the valley was a divine cauldron that was taller than a person. It still emanated divine might, and laws and principles coexisted within it. If they wanted to leave this place, they would have to rely on this cauldron. Otherwise, not even Paragon you would have been able to leave. There was always a way out, and Paragon you clearly wouldn't push things too far. The two of them slowly slid down the valley, quickly rushing towards the cauldron. The patterns on the surface of the cauldron were extremely ancient and dignified, filled with the vicissitudes of time. Even after so many years, they hadn't been destroyed by the passage of time. Tao Father Star Defiance gently stroked the cauldron. He didn't tell that peak progenitor how to leave this place, because he didn't want him to leave at all. Once he obtained the hegemon's quintessence, he would kill this peak progenitor and then leave by himself. The hegemon's quintessence energy should be within this cauldron. The key is how to open it, but no one knows. The primordial yin-yang clone of the primordial immortal world was the only one who knew how to open it, Tao Father Star Defiance said in a low voice. The peak progenitor circled the cauldron a few times, then climbed onto it. He stretched out his hand, wanting to open the lid, but despite using all his strength, he couldn't even budge it. Perhaps there's some sort of mechanism. We're far more powerful than the primordial immortal world's clone of the primordial immortal world. If it can do it, there's no way we can't. The peak progenitor's eyes flashed as he casually took off his mask. He was actually a middle-aged man with a dignified expression. His strength was most likely not inferior to Tao Father Star Defiance, but in the 9-star domain, the strength he could unleash was definitely inferior to Tao Father Star Defiance. Turn, pull, press down. The two of them kept probing, but the cauldron didn't budge at all. The lid seemed to be one with the cauldron. After a long time, the two of them were panting, but still couldn't retrieve the hegemon's quintessence. Humph. Tao Father Star Defiance was enraged. He directly crushed the mask on his face, revealing a gloomy expression. At this moment, Yi Qing Han and Primordial Yin Yang actually landed on the 7th planet, but right behind them were Flame Emperor and Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven. Flame Emperor chased after them, but before he could even get close to Yi Qing Han, he was stopped by Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven. Originally, Flame Emperor wanted to kill Primordial Yin Yang directly, but Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven was still counting on Primordial Yin Yang to lead the way, so he had no choice but to endure. Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven's space quintessence was indeed ridiculous. He could actually sense some space quintessence here, so even now, Primordial Yin Yang didn't know that Flame Emperor and Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven had followed them. The four of them slowly rushed into the depths, climbing over mountains and finally appearing in a valley. Roar! The moment they appeared in the valley and saw the cauldron, Flame Emperor couldn't help but draw his sword and walk towards Primordial Yin Yang. Primordial Yin Yang saw that there were two people behind him, and one of them was Flame Emperor. He immediately retreated dozens of steps and cried out, "Yi Qing Han, you broke your oath. Be careful, the heavens have eyes." Yi Qing Han raised his head and sneered, "When did I break my oath?" The two of them, who informed them? Primordial Yin Yang roared. Yi Qing Han coldly snorted, "What does it have to do with me? I didn't inform them, and I wasn't prepared to kill you." Flame Emperor's killing intent surged as he approached with his sword in hand. The hatred in his eyes was self-evident. Yin Yang, Yen Yu and the Heavenly Emperor are already dead. You should accompany them. Flame Emperor growled. Chapter 30-37. Although the 7th planet wasn't suitable for fighting, it wasn't like it couldn't be fought. Primordial Yin Yang was terrified of Flame Emperor. Although Yi Qing Han was strong, he had weaknesses that could be negotiated with. However, Flame Emperor didn't. Thud thud thud, Primordial Yin Yang retreated again and growled at Yi Qing Han, "Yi Qing Han, you promised me that you would let me go if I brought you here. Now that you found Tao Ancestor Star-defying, why aren't you stopping Flame Emperor? Yi Qinghan sneered and replied disdainfully, I said I'll let you go. You can leave at any time. But Flame Emperor is now your man. Primordial Yin Yang said angrily. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and said disdainfully, which eye of yours saw Senior Flame Emperor as my man? Senior Flame Emperor isn't from Crazy Manor. He's from the Flame Clan. He was, is, and will always be. Only he can decide what he does. I can't change it. Whoosh! Just then, Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven appeared in front of everyone with a wretched expression. He glanced at the divine cauldron, but he wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he stared at Primordial Yin Yang. He had promised Flame Emperor that he wouldn't attack on the way here. Now that they were in the 9-star domain, he had to cut off Primordial Yin Yang's escape route. Kid, don't tell me this old man is also from Crazy Manor. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven said with a grin. Primordial Yin Yang frowned at Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven and then looked at Yi Qinghan's expression and actions. He knew that he had been tricked. Yi Qinghan had no intention of letting him go from the start. Yi Qinghan crossed his arms and waited for Flame Emperor and Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven to kill Primordial Yin Yang. The 7th planet's gravity was stronger. Coupled with the suppression of the laws of order, it was barren. Whoosh! Tao Ancestor Star-defying and the Extreme Ancestor Expert drew their swords and confronted Yi Qinghan, Flame Emperor, and Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven. However, they were extremely dissatisfied. Yin Yang, you betrayed us. Tao Father Star-defiance roared with dissatisfaction. Immemorial Yin Yang had a helpless look on his face as he said in a low voice, I have no other way out. I can only use the terrain here to kill them. We'll take the Sovereign's essence and leave. Yi Qinghan sneered. This place was indeed not suitable for others to make a move, but it did not mean that it was not suitable for him. Little White Cloud was able to display a lot of strength in the Secondary Saint Realm and the Jade Court Realm. It was the same here. Even if it could display 30% of Yi Qinghan's strength, it would be easy for it to destroy the 3 of them, not to mention it had the support of the Divine Bird. Hee, you 3 idiots. This is my territory. Supreme Elder Yi walked out. The might of a sage was vast and mighty, and it actually caused the Divine Cauldron to emit light. The Divine Bird's strength was greatly suppressed here, but even half of its combat power was enough to destroy everything. Hiss, everyone ignored the Divine Bird, but the Divine Bird truly existed. Bastard! Tao Father Star-defiance roared. Immemorial Yin Yang sensed the killing intent from Tao Father Star-defiance and immediately remained vigilant, retreating far away. Yi Qinghan looked at Tao Father Star-defiance and said indifferently, Star-defiance, I was entrusted by someone to take your life. Today, this place shall be your final resting place. Tao Father Star-defiance frowned as he looked at Yi Qinghan and said in a low voice, Abode Lord Yi, I have no enmity with you. Who entrusted you with this task? We both came here for benefits. I've been wandering the 9-star domain for many years. We can work together and seize the Sovereign's essence. When the time comes, the world will be ours. Yi Qinghan smiled and waved his hand, taking out a saber that shone with a cold light. He gave me faith and inheritance. The benefits you can give me are incomparable. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan walked towards Tao Father Star-defiance with saber in hand. He had promised not to kill Immemorial Yin Yang, but that did not mean that he would not kill Tao Father Star-defiance and the other peak progenitor. Rub rub rub, rustle rustle rustle, Tao Father Star-defiance and the peak progenitor sensed the terrifying aura emanating from Yi Qinghan's body and hurriedly retreated. In particular, Tao Father Star-defiance actually wanted to retreat to the Divine Cauldron and use it to leave. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flickered as he appeared behind Tao Ancestor Starfall and the Expert, blocking their path. Don't even think about escaping in front of me. Star Defiance, you should know who entrusted me with this task. Boom. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan had actually used 20% of his strength on the 7th planet. With a single slash of his saber, he broke through the 9 cauldrons formation that suppressed the laws of order. Clang. The progenitor raised his sword to block, but the saber slashed down and split his body into 2. In this place, death was complete death. There was no chance of resurrection. The progenitor did not even have a chance to scream before he perished on the spot. HSS, you're also from the 3rd planet? Doubtfather Star Defiance asked in shock as he retreated several steps. For Yi Qinghan to be able to use such tremendous power in this place, this was clearly something that could only be done by someone who did not belong to the 5 elements. You really are stupid to the extreme. Whoosh. Clang. Yi Qinghan did not rely on autark Yi Qinghan. Instead, he relied on his own strength and was supported by Little White Cloud. His saber light shot out in all directions, sweeping out for tens of thousands of kilometers as he forced Doubtfather Star Defiance to retreat. He was an existence that did not belong to the 5 elements, but Yi Qinghan had Little White Cloud while Doubtfather Star Defiance did not. Boom. Doubtfather Star Defiance was sent flying, slamming into a mountain. Even a mountain of such quality was smashed to pieces. Virtuous Paragon Yuzun wants me to take your life. As someone from the 3rd planet, I dare not disobey. You should be smiling in the underworld for a virtuous paragon to take your life. Whoosh. Boom. Yi Qinghan's figure flashed as he sped through the valley. He kicked Doubtfather Star Defiance, using the power of the 5 elements to send him flying back towards the divine cauldron. Whoosh. Swish. Yi Qinghan soared into the air, then stabbed downwards with his saber. The saber pierced through the laws of order and pierced straight through Doubtfather Star Defiance's chest. Ayah! Doubtfather Star Defiance howled in agony as he begged, Manor Lord Yi, you and I are both from the 3rd planet. For the sake of Buddha, spare me. I'll take you, to find the hegemon quintessence energy, no need. The hegemon quintessence energy within the 9 cauldrons should remain here. Boom. The little white cloud on Yi Qinghan's wrist transformed into a gauntlet, and he punched straight through Doubtfather Star Defiance's head, killing him instantly. In this place it was extremely common for progenitors to die. In fact, it was very easy for them to die, even easier than for secondary saints. Once their physical body died, not even their soul would be able to escape. Blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the surrounding mountains red. In an orderly fashion, it began to flow towards the divine cauldron. Yi Qinghan didn't care about any of this. After killing Doubtfather Star Defiance, he raised his head and watched as Flame Emperor suppressed primordial yin-yang with overwhelming superiority. Extreme Sage of Thieving Heaven watched from the side. Whenever primordial yin-yang tried to escape, he would stop him. A moment later, primordial yin-yang's entire body was covered in wounds. He roared with unwillingness, Yi Qinghan. You'll die a horrible death. Your oath will come true sooner or later. Slap. At that moment, Sovereign Yi moved even faster and viciously slapped primordial yin-yang. Shut your stinking mouth and slowly wait for death. If you dare to spout any more nonsense, I'd like to see how you'll sleep with yourself today. Sovereign Yi waved his small hand disdainfully. Chapter 30-38. Yi Qinghan didn't care about immemorial yin-yang's hysterical roar. Even if Flame Emperor and Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven didn't come, he would have killed immemorial yin-yang personally. Now that they were here, it was naturally the best. Yin-yang, you've lived long enough. Indeed, I won't kill you, but that doesn't mean that Senior Flame Emperor won't kill you. I have no relationship with him. If he wants to take revenge, that's his business. Yi Qinghan said coldly. Boom. Primordial yin-yang was slapped by Supremacy Yi and then stepped on by Flame Emperor. If Yan Emperor wanted to do so, he could do it. However, as time passed, Yan Emperor only killed evil and destroyed yin and yang. He didn't change the heaven and earth. Yan Emperor didn't change the heaven and earth because he only killed evil and destroyed yin and yang. Hiss, Flame Emperor took a deep breath and looked at immemorial yin yang under his feet. He didn't know if he was happy or sad. After killing the person under his feet, he had no other thoughts other than being a sovereign. Yin Yang, go and apologize to me. Roar. Hua. Boom. Flame Emperor held the sword hilt with both hands and stabbed down. The human sovereign sword was filled with killing intent as it pierced into immemorial yin-yang sea of consciousness. Without yin and yang, everything was destroyed. Pucci. Immemorial yin-yang didn't even have time to beg before dying on the spot. Boom. Flame Emperor was furious. He swung his sword and sent immemorial yin-yang's corpse flying, crashing into the cauldron. Ah! Flame Emperor roared. Killing immemorial yin-yang made him even more furious and helpless. Yan Yu was dead, immemorial yin-yang was dead, Liang Di was dead, and the three plotters were all dead. However, other than Hualing Tian and Yi Qinqing, the rest of the Yan clan was almost extinct. Even the nine-colored Fan Xian could not be revived. Flame Emperor knelt on the ground, holding the human sovereign sword and crying silently. As long as the enemy wasn't dead, he still had the will to live. But now, he had lost all hope. Yi Qinghan sighed softly. The Flame Emperor had come back from the dead. He didn't fit in with the current era. He didn't have any relatives or friends. Perhaps he owed the crazed manor a debt of gratitude, but he wasn't stubborn enough. He was too lonely. Senior, we might have a chance at the sovereign realm. Yi Qinghan reminded in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan was truly afraid that Flame Emperor would never be able to recover from this setback. The Flaming Emperor looked at the immemorial yin-yang lying in a pool of blood under the cauldron. He felt powerless and the human sovereign sword in his hand was trembling. The sovereign realm had always been an ethereal existence. Once a sovereign appeared, they would be able to dominate everything. However, those who could become a sovereign would have to have a heaven-shaking amount of good karma. Their state of heart would have to reach an unimaginable level. The order of heaven and earth was emotionless and unreasonable. However, deep within the emotionlessness, there were emotions. The laws and principles of heaven and earth could not allow a virtuous and selfish person to become the ruler. Otherwise, the entire universe would be in chaos. Yi Qinghan didn't know how to become a ruler, and it seemed like the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors didn't know either. Otherwise, Yu Zun would have told others about the secret of becoming a ruler before he died. Reviving the dead was the Flame Emperor's obsession. Whoosh! The Flame Emperor stood up and walked towards the cauldron. He said firmly, I want to bring back a portion of the ruler's energy source. Whether I can become a ruler or not, I have to give it a try. Yi Qinghan wanted to tell the Flame Emperor that he didn't need to be a ruler to revive the Flame Clan and the 9-colored Brahma heart. He only needed to have the battle strength to kill the 9 virtuous paragons of the secondary universe. By opening the ancient flood path and opening the primal chaos trench, he would be able to retrieve their memories through reincarnation. However, Yi Qinghan was really afraid that the Flame Emperor would go crazy and directly destroy the 9 cauldron Great Array, opening the ancient flood path and opening the primal chaos trench. At that time, the virtuous paragons under the 9 divine cauldrons would appear. Without the support of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, the entire universe would collapse. Yi Qinghan walked over and looked at the proud cauldron. It was shining brightly as if it had been stimulated by the ancestral blood. The patterns on it were even clearer. How can I obtain the ruler's energy source? Yi Qinghan asked seriously. The Flame Emperor shook his head. If he knew, why would he wait until now? Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven was very excited. The cauldron was right in front of him and he could take it as he pleased. Sovereign Yi Qinghan crossed his arms and stood next to Yi Qinghan, looking at the cauldron with anticipation. He clicked his tongue and said, "So this is my home. Not bad. It would be perfect if I could take the cauldron away. The world is vast and I can go wherever I want. No one can break through my defenses." Kakik. Pa. Yi Qinghan casually slapped the bird, causing it to groan. He didn't say it out loud, but the divine bird naturally knew why. The cauldron wasn't only used to suppress the laws of the 9-star field, it was also used to suppress the 9 virtuous paragons. Once the formation was broken, the 9 virtuous paragons would appear and any one of them could kill Kuang Fu. The divine bird immediately shrunk its head and smiled, "I'm joking, I'm just joking." Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven felt that it made sense. If he could refine the cauldron, why would he need to be afraid of the sages? This old man feels that the divine bird's words make sense. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven said in a wretched manner. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and said with certainty, "The existence of these 9 cauldrons has other meanings. None of you should have any ideas about them or don't blame me for being hostile." The Flame Emperor looked at Yi Qinghan in surprise. He had never seen him so serious before. "What meaning?" the Flame Emperor asked. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and shook his head, "Senior, forgive me for not being able to say right now." The Flame Emperor glanced at Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven and knew that Yi Qinghan didn't believe this old man, so he didn't ask any more questions. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven wanted to get to the bottom of this, but there was nothing he could do if Yi Qinghan didn't want to say. "It doesn't matter if you don't want the cauldron. Once I get the ruler's source and refine it, I will also become a sage. By then, the other sages won't be able to do anything to me." Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven said arrogantly. "The ruler's source in this cauldron is mine." The Flame Emperor said firmly. "It's mine." Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven immediately stretched his neck and shouted. "Een." The sword in the Flame Emperor's hand moved and a cold light shot out. He stared at Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven with impatience in his eyes. "Yo, kid, you've grown your wings, huh? With the sage here, he can't do anything to me. It'll belong to whoever gets it. If you get the ruler's source in this cauldron, I won't fight with you. I'll go find another ruler's source in another cauldron. But if I get it, you're not allowed to snatch it from me." Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven wasn't afraid of the Flame Emperor. He placed his hands on his waist and said firmly. "Who?" The Flame Emperor exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and nodded, agreeing to this agreement. The divine bird grinned and said, "Then if I get it, you guys are not allowed to snatch it." "Scram, what do you want a ruler's source for?" Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven unhappily said. "What if I gather the other ruler's energies and become a ruler?" The divine bird disdainfully retorted. Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose. He wasn't interested in arguing with Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven. It'll belong to whoever gets it. The key was that he didn't know how to get back. The 4 of them surrounded the cauldron and found that after absorbing the ancestral blood, the runes on the cauldron became clearer and its power became stronger. Yi Qinghan didn't know what was going on. He thought that the cauldron would become more stable after absorbing the ancestral blood and could completely suppress the 9 virtuous paragons. Therefore, he threw the other corpse under the cauldron. He didn't know how much trouble this ignorant action of his had caused him. Chapter 30-39. The 3 corpses under the cauldron emitted an even brighter light. One could even see the runes clearly as the blood on the 3 corpses quickly dried up. Yi Qinghan frowned while looking at the withered corpses. As a virtuous paragon, Yuzun wouldn't be able to refine such a cauldron. It actually devoured the flesh of progenitors to increase its own strength. The 2 didn't know that there was a virtuous paragon under the cauldron, so they didn't think much about it. However, the divine bird knew and noticed that something was wrong after seeing the withered corpses. It kicked one of the corpses away and found that the bones were almost rotten as if they had been dead for many years. Bang! 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 Yi Qinghan kicked the corpses away twice. He watched as the rocks under the cauldron turned from red to dark before returning to normal. His heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Not good. The cauldron didn't absorb the progenitor's flesh, it was the virtuous paragon who took the flesh and vitality, causing the cauldron to increase the sealing power. I misunderstood. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and didn't know what to do. Supreme Yi shrunk his head and looked at Yi Qinghan with an extremely aghast expression. We've caused trouble. Supreme Yi whispered. Yi Qinghan's fingertips slightly trembled as he silently nodded. Although these three corpses weren't the key factor, they had at least brought forward the revival of the virtuous paragon. 1 year. 10 years. This was a very crucial time. Buzz. At this time, the meritorious bone in Yi Qinghan's chest emitted a bright light that enveloped the mountains and rivers. The cauldron also emitted a divine light as if it was responding to the bone. Whoosh! The meritorious bone soared into the sky as the cauldron awakened on its own. The lid on the cauldron rotated and left the cauldron. The sovereign's origin inside the cauldron was like a pure white cloud with profound laws and laws. It intertwined with the cauldron to form a huge net that suppressed the virtuous paragon below. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven and Yen Emperor simultaneously grabbed for the sovereign's origin. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan hurriedly reached out and pulled the two of them back a few steps. Seniors, please wait. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Yen Emperor and Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven frowned and asked in unison, why? Yi Qinghan sighed, not daring to say that there was a secondary universe's paragon suppressed under the cauldron. He could only say, this cauldron suppresses a demon. Once it is released, no one in the world can stop it. Nonsense, how could there be an evil demon in this world? Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven was very knowledgeable and asked in disdain. Yi Qinghan sighed and shook his head, there are too many unknown things in the world. The two of you, I am not lying, this divine cauldron is indeed suppressing a creature that you have never seen before. This is what Yuzun told me. Look, the blood that flowed out of the three ancestor realm corpses immediately dried up, and the blood and bones withered quite a bit. Can't you see the problem? Although the Flame Emperor was stubborn, he was not crazy. Although Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven was selfish, he was not selfish to the point of madness. Everyone knew that if there was an evil demon suppressed under the cauldron, it would definitely not be released. Even the Flame Emperor and Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven would rather give up the ruler origin energy than release the evil demon. What is that white treasure? Flame Emperor frowned and asked. Yi Qinghan looked at the virtuous bone, took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, that is the virtuous bone, a supreme treasure left behind by a virtuous paragon. If the virtuous bone allows you to take the sovereign's energy source, you can take it. If it doesn't, you cannot take it. The virtuous bone is out, stop messing around. When the evil demon comes out, we won't be able to escape. Sovereign Yi said in a rare serious tone. Finally, Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven and Flame Emperor stabilized their emotions and suppressed their thoughts as they stared at the cauldron. Inside the cauldron, the virtuous bone replaced the ruler origin energy, and the ruler origin energy soared into the sky. Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven saw this and immediately took the initiative to grab the ruler origin energy. However, just as he got close, he was sent flying by a sage force. Bang! Whoosh! The powerful Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven didn't even have the chance to resist as he was sent flying. His body almost fell apart as he grimaced in pain. The ruler origin energy was bound by the virtuous bone and automatically flew to the Flame Emperor. The virtuous bone decided where the ruler origin energy would go. It didn't even go to Yi Qinghan and directly went to the Flame Emperor. The Flame Emperor had the Yellow Emperor's virtuous bone and his own virtuous bone. If he could obtain the ruler origin energy, he would definitely become a virtuous sage. Although virtuous sage Yuzun had transformed into a virtuous bone, the virtuous bone was still very principled. Ah, extreme sage thieving heaven clutched his butt and limped back while looking at the cauldron with dissatisfaction. This guy bullied me. I clearly got it first. Extreme sage thieving heaven's face was red and he was very angry. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to say that it was the virtuous bone of virtuous sage Yuzun's doing. He could only shrug and say, treasures belong to the fated ones. The ruler origin energy can choose its own master. Since you were rejected, you can't blame others. Extreme sage thieving heaven didn't believe it. Bullshit, treasures belong to the fated ones. Those were words that experts used to bully noobs to leave some face for themselves. However, the Flame Emperor had already obtained the ruler origin energy. Extreme sage thieving heaven could no longer snatch it back. This was because the Flame Emperor's strength with Zhang Daoling's help was almost the number one under the Sage realm. I want to go and obtain the ruler origin energy on other planets. Extreme sage thieving heaven was silent for a long time before saying unwillingly. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and said, do as you wish. As long as you can reach the 6th or 8th planet, I have no objections. Damn! Extreme sage thieving heaven was flustered and exasperated as he cursed, are you guys teaming up to play with me? TSK TSK TSK, the divine bird clicked its tongue and said, old man, your negative energy is too heavy. When would we have the time to work together to bully you? The ruler origin energy not accepting you might have something to do with virtue and character. It has nothing to do with strength. Bullshit. Of the 9 sages in the secondary universe, which one of them has true virtue? Didn't they all use strength to refine the ruler origin energy? I am much stronger than them before refining the ruler origin energy. Why can they obtain it but I can't? Extreme sage thieving heaven roared unwillingly. Extreme sage thieving heaven had been coveting the ruler origin energy for a long time. Now that it was being destroyed right in front of him, he was definitely unhappy. It was already very restrained for him to not make a move to snatch it. The Flame Emperor carefully hid the origin energy in his chest and maintained a distance from extreme sage thieving heaven. He wasn't willing to say much and had no way to refute extreme sage thieving heaven. The divine bird disdainfully retorted, have you heard of this before? When the tiger is absent, the monkey becomes king. You can only blame yourselves for being born in the wrong era. If the Flame Emperor and my boss were born in the desolate era, which 9 would have been able to snatch the ruler origin energy? What he said was very reasonable. Yi Qinghan nodded and said, Senior Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven, I promise that as long as we have the confidence to kill the demons below the god cauldrons, I will immediately come here and retrieve the ruler origin energy from the other god cauldrons. I will give it to you first. How about it? Extreme Sage Thieving Heaven curled his lips. He had no choice but to agree. Chapter 30-40. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven felt miserable. He had no choice but to agree because he didn't know that it was the virtuous bone that was causing trouble, preventing him from obtaining the sovereign's origin energy. Therefore, he didn't dare to act recklessly. If he failed again, he would offend Yi Qinghan and the Flame Emperor at the same time. Moreover, the 2 sages had placed a huge bounty on him. Yi Qinghan saw that Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven had given up on the sovereign's origin energy and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He then came under the divine cauldron and respectfully said, Virtuous sage, can you let us leave? No one knew that Honorable Yu was already dead. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to call out his name. The virtuous bone still had consciousness. This was the last trick left behind by Honorable Yu. After today, it might stay in the cauldron forever, suppressing the virtuous sage. It was unknown how long it could last. Hua! The divine cauldron once again shot out a divine light. A whirlpool actually appeared above the cauldron like a wormhole. However, it didn't have much suction force. Yi Qinghan looked at the Flame Emperor and the others and said, "Let's go." Hua! Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi were the first to enter the wormhole. They didn't suspect Honorable Yu. The Flame Emperor also didn't think too much. Yi Qinghan definitely wouldn't harm him. Therefore, he followed closely into the wormhole. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven frowned and also rushed in. The wormhole closed and a moment later, the lid of the divine cauldron was closed. Honorable Yu's virtuous bone remained in the divine cauldron, replacing the sovereign's origin energy to strengthen the seal. The wormhole on the seventh planet disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in the secondary saint realm. This was a path left behind by Yuzun. Every planet's cauldron had such a path, and the destination was the secondary saint realm. At this moment, there was no sovereign's origin energy in the divine cauldron on the eighth planet because it was taken away by the Father Divine Bird. After so many years, the virtuous sage under the divine cauldron was slowly recovering. If it wasn't for the formation formed by the other divine cauldrons, he would have already rushed out of the divine cauldron. Hua hua hua. Whine. The cauldron trembled as if it was about to move, but because the meritorious bone was personally suppressing the seventh planet, the virtuous paragon couldn't move the cauldron no matter how hard he tried. Whoosh! The divine cauldron shone with boundless radiance as the patterns extended outwards. Every pattern was clearly visible and formed countless dark webs. The 9 planets were connected into one, including the third planet. The order of all things was suppressed. Within the 9 stars domain, no one could even think about unleashing the power they should have. However, if one looked from above, they would see that the 9 planets were operating in an orderly manner. After countless years, the alignment of the 9 stars would occur. At this time, the magnetic fields of the 9 planets would change greatly. However, as long as the 9 paragons couldn't exert their power at the same time, there wouldn't be a big problem. But now, the 9 paragons were showing signs of awakening. Once they exerted their power at the same time, a terrifying event would occur in the 9-star realm. The injured cauldrons of the 9 planets were doing their best to defend and suppress the 9 paragons. No one knew that disaster was coming, not even the sage. As soon as Yi Qinghan appeared in the secondary saint domain, he exchanged glances with the Flame Emperor. Both of them heaved a sigh of relief. However, they were still feeling depressed. They subconsciously looked towards the depths of the 9-star domain, feeling that something big was about to happen. "Go back and tell me what is going on," the Flame Emperor said in a serious tone. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and knew that this matter wouldn't last for long. He could only nod in silence. "Let's go." Yi Qinghan took the lead and fused with the divine bird to rush towards the Seeking Heaven domain. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 3 were extremely fast. After appearing at the Seeking Heaven domain, their speed reached an unbelievable level as they headed straight for the ancient immortal secondary world. At this moment, in the heaven surveying secondary world, Sage Feng Yu was heavily injured after being ambushed by the divine bird and Yi Qinghan. This was equivalent to being attacked by a sage several times. His injuries were severe and couldn't be healed in a short period of time. Sage Feng Yu's chest had been pierced by the flaming sage sword, and the Dharma logos of order had been torn apart. Sovereign Ye's Dharma logos of order was a dominating order. Once it was broken, it was very difficult to reverse the process. This caused Sage Feng Yu to be unable to heal his injured body within 100,000 years. Feng Xian looked at Sage Feng Yu's tired face. Not only did he not feel sorry for him, but he also wanted to kill him. "If I refine his soul and the laws and principles of the sage's laws and principles, will I have power that surpasses the sage's?" Feng Xian's eyes flashed coldly as he wanted to kill. At this time, Sage Feng Yu woke up again. The hostility in his eyes was even stronger. After so many years, not only did his injuries not recover, they had worsened. Sage Feng Yu seemed to have aged countless years. His hair was white and the wound on his chest was suppressed by the laws and principles of the ruler. He couldn't stop the pain that Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi brought to him. Feng Xian. Join forces with me to suppress this laws and principles of order. Sage Feng Yu had no other choice. He looked up at Feng Xian and said in a low voice. Feng Xian was overjoyed, but he quickly suppressed the thoughts in his heart. This was the best time to refine Sage Feng Yu. Yes. Feng Xian bowed and cupped his fists. Sage Feng Yu didn't know that his strongest son wanted to kill him and even wanted to refine him. He wasn't prepared at all. In his current state, he couldn't guard against his son. First, study the laws and principles of order in my wounds. Sage Feng Yu said in a low voice. Feng Xian's expression was solemn as he studied the wounds on his wounds. He wanted to use this opportunity to study Sage Feng Yu's current state and find the easiest way to refine him. As time passed, Feng Xian had already gained control of 70 to 80% of the situation. No one knew that Feng Xian's actions would change the situation for the sages. At this moment, Yi Qinghan didn't care about Sage Feng Yu at all. They returned to the heaven-suppressing prefecture of the ancient immortal world. Extreme saint-thieving heaven left, leaving only Yi Qinghan and Yan Emperor in the main imperial palace. Yi Qinghan dismissed all the guards, including Emperor Yi, leaving only Yan Emperor and Supreme Yi. Tell me honestly, what's under the cauldrons? Yan Emperor said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and replied seriously, the 9 virtuous paragons of the secondary universe. There's one virtuous paragon under each cauldron. Hua! The Flame Emperor stood up immediately as he looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Who suppressed them? Why? Yan Emperor asked in shock. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors of the primary universe suppressed them because the virtuous paragons of the secondary universe wanted to control the primary universe and become the ruler. They didn't hesitate to refine the primary universe. That way, not only would the order of the primary universe collapse, the secondary universe would also be destroyed. However, the virtuous paragons of the secondary universe didn't care. They believed that once they became the ruler, everything would be restored. They were cutting off all means of retreat. In the end, it caused the virtuous paragons of the primary universe to resist, resulting in the deaths of everyone on the 9 planets of the primary universe. Only the foundation of the primary universe remained. On the 3rd planet, virtuous paragon Yuzun used his life and merits to set up the 9 cauldrons array. The other 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors worked together to heavily injure the 9 virtuous paragons and suppressed them under the 9 cauldrons. Yi Qinghan explained honestly. Yan Emperor's fingertips trembled and he couldn't speak for a long time. Yi Qinghan looked at Yan Emperor and said, Senior, you're from the secondary universe. I shouldn't be telling you this, but the virtuous bone acknowledged you and personally gave you the ruler's origin. Moreover, you have the merits of Yellow Emperor Virtuous Paragon, so I believe in you. Chapter 30-41. Yi Qinghan's words left Yan Emperor speechless for a long time. He had never experienced the primordial war, and Yi Qinghan definitely had not experienced it either. Where did you get this information from? Yan Emperor asked curiously. Yi Qinghan replied, Virtuous Paragon Yuzun told me. He was the one who forged the 9 cauldrons to suppress the laws and logos of the original universe and seal the torrent path. The torrent path is a part of reincarnation, and the primal chaos trench is also a part of reincarnation. Soul energy gathers in the primal chaos trench, but it can't circulate through the torrent path. As a result, most people who die in the secondary universe can't reincarnate. Yan Emperor was shocked speechless. Fragments of memories kept flashing through his mind. Many ideas exploded in his mind, but he felt that it was inappropriate. Yi Qinghan was also afraid that Yan Emperor would forcefully break the 9 cauldrons great array, so he said, "Senior, actually, we don't need to become a ruler to reincarnate for the Yan clan and the 9-colored Brahma heart. However, we need to have the strength to suppress the 9 virtuous paragons. Otherwise, even if we open the torrent path and the primal chaos trench, all our efforts won't be enough to withstand the destruction of the 9 virtuous paragons." Hiss, Yan Emperor took a deep breath. His fingertips trembled slightly, and the corner of his mouth raised into an excited smile. After working so hard for so long, he finally saw hope. If it wasn't for the sake of reviving the dead, why would he bother to step into the illusory ruler realm? Now that he knew how to reincarnate the Yan clan and the 9-colored Brahma heart, it was enough. Ha 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 ha, Yan Emperor laughed, but his heart was filled with sadness. I understand. As long as I know where my end point is, it's enough to defeat the 9 virtuous paragons of the secondary universe. The flaming emperor stood up and took a deep breath. He flipped his hand and took out the ruler's origin energy. Since you said that I have great merit, then I will refine this ruler's origin energy and fuse it with me. Then, I will become a virtuous paragon. I can't defeat 9, but I can defeat 3. The rest will be up to you guys. Yi Qinghan smiled. Since Yan Emperor could control his emotions, it was for the best. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to fight anyone in his life, but Yan Emperor was the only one he didn't want to be his enemy. Of the same realm without Little White Cloud, even if he and Supremacy joined forces, they might not be able to win. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for your generosity, Senior. I didn't dare to tell you when I first heard the news. I was afraid that you would be too stubborn and cause a disaster. The paragons of the virtuous paragons. But. And the paragons and the 9-colored Brahma heart will be resurrected. Those virtuous paragons. The virtuous paragons will. Those paragons will. Them paragons life." Yi Qinghan sighed and reminded, "Senior, you can't let outsiders know about this. Although the 9 virtuous paragons have been suppressed for a long time, it doesn't mean that the secondary universe has forgotten about them. If the sages find out that they are still alive, I'm afraid that they will take advantage of the fact that the 3rd planet has no one to fight and release the 9 virtuous paragons in advance." Yan Emperor nodded and said, "From today onwards, I will refine the ruler's energy and fuse it with my karma to become a virtuous paragon. At that time, even if they are released in advance, we will still have the strength to protect ourselves." Yi Qinghan was silent for a while. The Yan Emperor had a chance to become a virtuous paragon. His body wasn't even a sage right now. A sense of crisis made him restless. "Qinghan, since virtuous paragons are people with great karma, it means that karma is very important. What you should pay attention to is karma. What kind of karma would be recognized? Since the 9 virtuous paragons are virtuous paragons, it means that they had great karma in the early stages. However, they didn't lose their cultivation when they tried to destroy the original universe. Their karma should come from the faith of the people in the secondary universe and not from the original universe. Therefore, I think, the reason they are virtuous paragons is because their karma comes from people. If their karma comes from the original universe, they can become rulers. Do you think my reasoning is correct?" Yi Qinghan furrowed his brows and muttered, "That's right. Saints and paragons didn't rely on virtuous deeds and only refined some of the ruler's origin energy. As for virtuous paragons, they relied on virtuous deeds. What about the ruler? They must have great karma. Moreover, karma doesn't come from living things but from the recognition of the original universe. Otherwise, how could a ruler control the entire original and secondary universe? How could one gain the recognition of the original universe and even the entire universe?" Yi Qinghan leaned back in his chair, lost in thought. The sovereign realm was a realm that no one had ever reached. Without any experience, all of this was speculation, and no one knew whether or not it was correct. All they could do was explore it step by step. Sky Sentry Subrealm, Sage Feng Yu's Holy Palace. Feng Xian's soul had fused with Sage Feng Yu's soul for a long time. At this moment, Sage Feng Yu was completely relaxed and only wanted to use Feng Xian's power to heal his wounds. Feng Xian was very patient and endured for several months. He even healed small wounds. When Feng Yu was completely relaxed, he suddenly erupted and shattered the defenseless sage's soul. He forcefully devoured and refined the sage's soul. Sage Feng Yu wanted to resist but lost the chance to do so. His body gradually went limp. Feng Xian devoured the sage's broken soul and refined it bit by bit. No one knew that a sage could be refined by someone who wasn't a sage. Moreover, Feng Xian was Sage Feng Yu's son. After 10 years, Feng Xian received everything from Sage Feng Yu, including the ruler's energy source. As soon as Feng Xian came out of seclusion, he announced that Sage Feng Yu had died due to his injuries. Before he died, he gave all his essence to Feng Xian. He became the new sage and took over all the powers of the Holy Lands. At this moment, Feng Xian's eyes flashed with a cold light as he clenched his fists and whispered, "Becoming a sage is not my goal. Becoming a virtuous paragon is my goal. The ignorant people of the world cannot escape from my palm. I have given you a place to live, so you must contribute some merit." Sage Feng Yu's Holy Land controlled more than 10 secondary universes, which were now under Feng Xian's control. Feng Xian's first action was to grant amnesty to the world. He even shared the secret techniques of the Ancestor Realm. This made the other Holy Lands shocked. This action was too crazy. How could the world not be moved by such actions? Karma was faith. When the world had faith, karma would naturally be there. It didn't matter if the karma was real or fake. It was the same to Feng Xian. As long as he hid it well enough and didn't let the people know of his evil heart, they would still believe in him and treat him as their savior. Yi Qinghan soon found out that Feng Xian had replaced Sage Feng Yu and did such a shocking thing. He knew that things weren't as simple as they seemed. Yi Qinghan frowned and whispered, "The injuries caused by me and the divine bird couldn't have killed Sage Feng Yu. Moreover, he died so quickly. There must be something wrong." Chapter 30-42. In the Imperial Hall, Yi Qinghan was just about to go into seclusion to cultivate and strive to step into the sage realm, but Feng Xian did this to him, making him feel uneasy. Feng Xian was clearly swindling merit points by doing this. So what if it was swindling merit points? As long as it was great merit points, it could still push him to the sage realm. Are we swindling merit points? The divine bird walked out and suggested seriously. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. His facial expression was extremely rich as he said disdainfully, "Even if I die, I won't do something like that. I want to find out how Sage Feng Yu died. This matter is definitely not simple. I suspect that Feng Xian assassinated Sage Feng Yu and then framed us. If they want to frame us, then so be it. What can they do to us now?" Supreme Yi asked with disdain. Yi Qinghan pondered for a while and said in a deep voice, "I'm afraid that they will join forces to deal with us." Pa! Supreme Exalt Yi was suddenly filled with heroism as he slammed the table and clamored, "What are you afraid of? I'll protect you. If one comes, I'll kill one. If a pair comes, I'll kill a pair." Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched and he snorted, "Who gave you the courage?" Sovereign Yi grinned and said, "Regardless of whether we win or not, we have to show our imposing manner. Aren't you the best at this?" Yi Qinghan sneered and said mockingly, "That's because I have to face the enemy. What's the use of being arrogant in front of me?" Only Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi were left in the Imperial Hall. Although both of them were smiling, they were very cautious. Feng Xian suddenly became a sage and Sage Feng Yu died. No one knew what happened, but the only thing they were certain of was that Sage Feng Yu would definitely not help Feng Xian without fear. If it was Sovereign Yu, he would be willing to sacrifice himself to help others. Few would doubt this, but if it was a sage of the secondary universe, such a thing was impossible. Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi were thinking about their next step. I think we should make a trip to the Heaven Surveyor subrealm, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. I don't think we should be led by the nose by a rookie. Instead of wasting time on the road, it's better to stay and comprehend the sage's power. In the face of absolute power, everything is fleeting. In the face of absolute power, everything else was like floating clouds. However, to be able to cultivate to absolute power, it required time. A person without foresight would have immediate worries, and Feng Xian was obviously one of them. Yi Qinghan tapped the table with his fingertips, and a light flashed between his brows. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan seemed to have come to a decision. He stood up and left the main imperial hall. Emperor Yi was waiting outside. Emperor Yi had completely given up on cultivation and focused on handling political affairs. As soon as he saw Yi Qinghan walk out, he immediately went to greet him. My son, inform Chen Tian and Lin Shukong to visit the Star Profound Sage and Qian Yishue in my name. Ask them what they're thinking. If there's a conflict with other sages in the future, they can stand aside and watch, but it's best if they don't become enemies with us, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Emperor Yi did not object. The older generation was currently cultivating hard to break through to the sage realm. Only these two second-generation masters could be used. After Emperor Yi left, Yi Qinghan said to Paragon Yi, go and see how the others are doing. I'll go to Jingfan Mountain and ask Jian Bugui for advice on the sage realm. Paragon Yi had been following Yi Qinghan all these years. On one hand, he was afraid that he would be taken away by others, and on the other hand, he wanted to protect Yi Qinghan. Now that he was in the Guangfu territory, he did not need to merge with Yi Qinghan. Thus, when he heard Yi Qinghan's words, he ran away without turning back. Yi Qinghan smiled and rushed from the heaven-suppressing palace all the way to Jingfan Mountain. Now, his speed was as fast as teleportation. Whoosh! After an incense's time, Yi Qinghan appeared at the foot of Jingfan Mountain with his own strength. Da-da-da, Yi Qinghan's steps were firm as he arrived at Jingfan Mountain again. As soon as he entered Jingfan Mountain, many memories flooded his mind. It was a pity that Zhang Fan left before he could enjoy Yi Qinghan's reward. Sigh, Yi Qinghan sighed softly, his heart was filled with regret. Immemorial Yin-Yang, Yan Yu and Emperor Liang's plan had caused him and Yan's sovereign to lose too much. But he could not blame Emperor Liang. Moments later, Yi Qinghan arrived at the halfway point of the mountain. When he arrived at the training ground, he found that Jian Bugui was not there and there was only a group of children. The older children were already in their 20s and the younger ones were still in their infancy. He did not even know where Jian Bugui brought them here. Some of them were not even from the Guangfu Celestial Empire. No matter how old they were all people who did not cultivate. But their auras were different. It was an aura of righteousness, as if they were all great scholars. Some of the children were playing the zither, some were practicing writing, but all of them were filled with righteousness. These children were searching for another path. Yi Qinghan stood outside the training ground for a long time before slowly entering. These children seemed to recognize Yi Qinghan, even though they had never seen him before. This was because there was a portrait of Yi Qinghan in the hall. It was drawn by Jian Bugui himself and it was very lifelike. Greetings, Guangfu Celestial Master. These children were neither servile nor overbearing as they stood up and bowed slightly. Yi Qinghan nodded slightly and asked softly, children, where is Dao friend Bugui? Guangfu Celestial Master, mother went out for a walk. According to the time, she should be back soon. The leader of the group was about 23 or 24 years old. He was part of the first batch of children to be adopted. His reverence for Jian Bugui was even greater than the heavens and earth. Yi Qinghan nodded silently and walked around the training ground. Finally, he came to the main hall and looked at the portraits hanging in the middle. He could not help but feel a twinge of pain in his heart, as if he had been stabbed in his weakest point. There were two portraits in the middle. One of them was of Yi Qinghan and the other was of Zhang Fan. Surrounding them were pictures of children in swaddling clothes. Every stroke of the painting was filled with emotion. Yi Qinghan looked at his own portrait. To be honest, Jian Bugui understood him better than he understood himself. She had drawn out his essence. Even the corners of his clothes were drawn out perfectly. His brows were 30% evil and 70% righteous. The light in his eyes was like the moonlight. There was no lack of killing intent in his righteousness, but there was also gentleness in his fierceness. Yi Qinghan looked at his own portrait and Zhang Fan's portrait. He could not regain his senses for a long time. Jian Bugui had drawn this portrait to express her inner feelings. However, she had been restraining herself. She had not even led Yi Qinghan into the main hall. Hua! Yi Qinghan bowed slightly at Zhang Fan's portrait. He seemed to understand why Jian Bugui was the first to enter the sage realm. Even if she had not specially cultivated, she did not have the experience to borrow. Jian Bugui's heart had completely calmed down. Her love and hatred had turned into great love for the common people. That was true merit. There were even signs of her being recognized by the laws of the universe. If she was fully recognized by the laws of the universe, she could reach the sovereign realm. Jian Bugui was the closest to the level that Yan Emperor and Yi Qinghan had predicted. She was the greatest merit to be recognized by the original universe. She was one step ahead of Yi Qinghan and Yan Emperor. However, she had only relied on her own strength. She did not borrow the strength of others. She also did not know how to establish an immortal kingdom. Every step she took was very solid. Bugui, I did not expect to lose to you. Yi Qinghan sighed softly and muttered to himself in a hoarse voice. No, you have only lost to yourself. The way you persist is different from mine. You bear too many responsibilities. That is why you can't let go. I, on the other hand, have only let go. A crisp voice slowly reverberated in the main hall. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He did not expect that when Jian Bugui appeared behind him, he could not sense her. If Jian Bugui had not taken the initiative to speak, he would not have had the chance to react even if she attacked him. Yi Qinghan turned around and looked at that pure and holy face. He could not help but feel a pang in his heart. Greetings, Sage Bugui. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly. Jian Bugui smiled gently and replied, Abode Master, ye must be joking. Chapter 30-43. Jian Bugui smiled and mockingly gestured for Yi Qinghan to sit down. This was the first time Yi Qinghan had entered the main hall since Zhang Fan's death. He was a bit restrained since he didn't expect Jian Bugui to be the first to reach the paragon level, even faster than the Flame Emperor. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan sat on the right while Jian Bugui sat on the left. The two sat across from each other and could look at each other if they raised their heads. However, they purposely averted their gazes. After a long while, Yi Qinghan looked at Jian Bugui. Suppressing his nervousness, he asked, I came to Jingfan Mountain today to ask for advice. How did you reach the sage position so quickly? Jian Bugui didn't hide anything and bluntly said, I can feel the power of the universe, the power of the entire universe, and I can borrow it. What? Yi Qinghan was shocked. Borrowing the power of the entire universe was something he had never seen before. Even when he teamed up with Supreme Yi and had the support of Little White Cloud, he still couldn't feel the power of the universe. Isn't this the power of a ruler? Yi Qinghan blurted out. Jian Bugui shook his head and said in a crisp voice, "It's close to that realm, but it's not the ruler of everything. It's far from it. It might be the power of a virtuous paragon." Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He didn't expect Jian Bugui to reach the virtuous paragon realm. "You. What kind of great merit have you done? You actually made the entire universe recognize you." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and couldn't accept this reality. Jian Bugui pondered for a bit and whispered, "All these years, I've been meditating and didn't care about the mortal world. Later on, when the world was in chaos and wars were endless, I kept on patrolling the secondary universe and saving some children. In fact, I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. However, one day, I suddenly felt the power of the universe. As time passed, I could feel more and more of the power of the universe. As long as I need it, I can borrow it at any time." Yi Qinghan fell into deep thought. This feeling was too ethereal and unimaginable. "May I ask for your advice?" Yi Qinghan asked expectantly. Jian Bugui looked at Yi Qinghan and did not reject him. After a while, he nodded his head. There was a gentle light in his eyes. He stood up and said, "No problem. I told you before that if you need anything, you can look for me." "Thank you." Yi Qinghan stood up and said in a hoarse voice. Yi Qinghan and Jian Bugui had become the most ordinary of friends. Yi Qinghan was restrained, and so was Jian Bugui. After breaking up with their first love, they all felt like this when they met again. "Let's go to the heaven domain," Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Jian Bugui shook his head and said faintly, "It's okay. Just do it in the dojo." The training hall was very small, at least for Yi Qinghan. It was too small for him to unleash much of his strength. Jian Bugui seemed to have seen through Yi Qinghan's concerns. He said, "Housemaster Yi, the smaller the place, the clearer you can feel it. Don't worry, you can't destroy this place." In the face of Jian Bugui's confidence, Yi Qinghan nodded silently. The two returned to the training hall side by side. The moonlight shone down and the shadows of the trees swayed with the wind. It was as beautiful as a fairyland. The children had already gone back to rest, and only the two of them were left in the training hall. Jian Bugui did not draw his sword. He just stood beside Jian Bugui and gestured with his hand. "Make your move." Yi Qinghan restrained his aura. Divine light flowed through his limbs and bones. The power of the sage surged and gathered his chi into a blade. Under the moonlight, the long blade was even colder. The Dharma and logos of all Dharma and order flowed around. Whoosh! Whoosh! The long blade slashed horizontally. It could split the sun, moon, mountains and rivers. It was unstoppable as it slashed towards Jian Bugui. He did not hold back. In an instant, the void above the training hall collapsed. A black hole appeared and everything was swallowed up. It wanted to swallow the entire Jingfan mountain into another dimension. Whoosh! Jian Bugui gently waved his jade-like hand. It emitted a luster like white jade. The power of the universe attached to it. Yi Qinghan's destruction of the universe was instantly repaired. The matter that had collapsed into another dimension actually returned to the secondary universe. Whoosh! When Yi Qinghan's long blade slashed into Jingfan Mountain, Jian Bugui pointed his index and middle fingers at the blade. His entire body shone with boundless light. He was like a god. The long blade collapsed. Even Yi Qinghan's Dharma and logos of order disappeared. It was completely suppressed. Even the Dharma and logos of order did not listen to Yi Qinghan's command. Whing! Boom! The surrounding space squeezed and directly trapped Yi Qinghan in place. This was absolute suppression. Seal! Jian Bugui gently chanted. It was like the sound of nature. The power of the universe surged and sealed Yi Qinghan in place. He could not even move, let alone attack. This was the power of a virtuous paragon. Paragons had no chance to resist. An unprecedented sense of defeat surged in his mind. Yi Qinghan looked at Jian Bugui in shock. He couldn't feel the power of Jian Bugui's body. This was the power of the entire universe. How could a person oppose the universe? Jian Bugui faintly smiled as if he had just done something very ordinary. His fingertip pressed down and pushed Yi Qinghan back to the ground. Yi Qinghan's attack turned into nothingness. Whoosh! The shattered space immediately returned to its original state. Yi Qinghan could destroy everything, but Jian Bugui could restore everything. This power had never been seen before. Hiss! Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. In his view, Jian Bugui's power was the power of a ruler. It was just that it had not reached the level of a true ruler. This could be a pseudo-ruler. However, Jian Bugui was not focused on comprehending the power of the primal universe. Thus, she might not be able to kill a virtuous paragon. Jian Bugui calmly said, "This is the power of the universe." Of course, this is only the power of a secondary universe. I am only using the materials here. Yi Qinghan was speechless for a long time. This power was not something he could contend against right now. Yi Qinghan didn't know what to say. His weathered face lost its evil aura and was replaced by helplessness and sadness. So many years of effort had gone down the drain. He had walked on the wrong path. The Grand Tao is endless. Only by walking more can one not walk on the wrong path. Yi Estate Lord, there is no need to be like this. Let nature take its course. Jian Bugui sighed. She was afraid that Yi Qinghan would not be able to recover from this setback. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and looked at the sky in a daze. What he had done all these years, was it not good karma? He had never done anything shameful to the common people. Every force he had built was kind to their people. Why couldn't they be recognized by the universe? Why? Yi Qinghan didn't understand and didn't want to accept this. Jian Bugui seemed to understand what Yi Qinghan was asking. He pondered for a bit and whispered, "Perhaps your original heart was utilitarian or your state of mind had not settled down. You have been running around all these years and the common people will recognize you. One day, you will become a virtuous paragon." Yi Qinghan felt powerless after hearing Jian Bugui's explanation. He slowly walked to the stone bench and sat down. He held his head with both hands while his mind was in a mess. This feeling of failure was as if all his efforts were not as good as someone else's. Chapter 30-44. The unprecedented sense of defeat made Yi Qinghan lose the mood to cultivate. He sat on the stool and stared at the stars, unable to regain his senses for a long time. Jian Bugui walked over slowly and patted Yi Qinghan's shoulder. "The Yi Qinghan I know is not someone who can't take defeat. The power of the universe that I can borrow, you will be able to borrow it sooner or later. Perhaps it will be even better and faster." Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. These were words of comfort. He naturally knew Jian Bugui's intentions. The Flaming Emperor attacked the Tao hearts of the world while Jian Bugui suppressed Yi Qinghan's Tao heart. Although this battle had been simple, it had almost shattered his Tao heart in an instant. Even great sages have made mistakes and blemishes. Why can't you take the wrong path? Jian Bugui could not help but remind Yi Qinghan when he saw that Yi Qinghan was still unable to regain his senses. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. "Because I can't see any hope in this battle. It seems that many people have been stubborn for their entire lives, but they still can't reach the peak that you can reach with your heart. You can calm down and think about it. Stay in Jingfan Mountain for this period of time." Jian Bugui said plainly. Yi Qinghan did not object. If his path was wrong, it would be useless no matter how much effort he put in. It was better to stay and calm down. There are ups and downs in life. There will always be successes and failures. There is no eternal success and no eternal failure. The accumulation of failure will lay the foundation for your success. I believe that the moment you succeed, it will be like a firework that will cause heaven and earth to lose its color. Jian Bugui was used to Yi Qinghan's success and believed in him. Hua! Jian Bugui stood up and came behind Yi Qinghan. He stretched out his hands to comfort Yi Qinghan's soul that was in so much pain that it was about to shatter. He said in a low voice, "Qinghan, we were young and naive back then and did many wrong things. Let go of those stubbornness and try to use a different mentality to accept it. Existence is the reason, just like light and darkness. Behind light must be darkness. We can't make the world flawless and it doesn't need to be flawless, right?" Yi Qinghan leaned gently against Jian Bugui's soft body. At this moment, he felt relaxed and gentle. For the first time, he wanted to completely give up on his previous pursuits. His Tao was different from Jian Bugui's. Jian Bugui had no desires and ruled by doing nothing. On the other hand, Yi Futian wanted complete control. Jian Bugui's success couldn't be replicated. If Flame King became a virtuous paragon, his success wouldn't be replicated either. He had the merit of a virtuous paragon on top of the sovereign's origin energy. No one else in this world could have such fortune. Yi Qinghan didn't have Flame King's fortune or Jian Bugui's carefree mentality. Could it be that he couldn't walk forward step by step and succeed? Yi Qinghan leaned against Jian Bugui. He wanted to give up, but he wasn't willing to. His Tao heart was slowly shattering. His cultivation was also becoming ethereal. He couldn't see his realm and couldn't even feel the laws of order. If this continued, Yi Qinghan would either be recognized by the universe and walk the path of Jian Bugui or not be recognized by the original universe and become a cripple. As time passed, Yi Qinghan couldn't feel the universe's recognition or the power of the original universe. However, his beliefs were collapsing. His Tao heart was regressing. Step by step, he returned to his youth. He returned to the era of the ancient god of slaughter. Humanity was bitterly struggling while the ancient god of slaughter bowed and prepared to die. Even if I die, I won't regret it. What a resolute will, what a tender face, how many people were prepared to draw their swords and die, one after another, never regretting it. Yi Qinghan was suddenly awakened. There are tens of thousands of paths in the world. Why do I have to walk someone else's path? If I walk her path, I'm destined to never reach Jian Bugui's heights in this lifetime. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. He thought back to his years of persistence. He thought back to the ancient god of slaughter's death and then looked at the uniform military salute of Crazed Manor's army. What right did he have to give up? If he gave up, it wouldn't just mean that he had given up. It would also mean that the entire Crazed Manor had given up. Crazed Manor's beliefs would collapse. What you say makes sense. Behind the light is darkness. Wherever I go, Crazed Manor is bright, but those outside are dark. That's why I can't obtain the universe's recognition and can't obtain great merit. That's why I can't walk your path. I believe that one day, I will be able to make the original universe recognize me, even if I have to force it. Yi Qinghan's will suddenly became firm. His shattered Tao heart actually began to recover. Seeing Yi Qinghan regain his confidence, Jian Bugui smiled without joy or sorrow. Break and rebuild. The reformed Tao heart was frantically strengthening. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes wide and said in a deep voice, "My actions don't need the recognition of the original universe. I don't need anyone's recognition. I only need to recognize myself." Jian Bugui gently rubbed Yi Qinghan's temples and said faintly, "Everyone's path is different. I'm just afraid that you won't acknowledge yourself. In the past, I didn't acknowledge you, but now, I acknowledge everything you've done. Even if you fail one day, you can come to Jingfan Mountain to look for me. Even if the entire universe is your enemy, I will still help you. Even if the entire universe is your enemy, I will help you. Jian Bugui's words were very calm, but no one knew how firm his heart was. Yi Qinghan smiled and said softly, "Thank you. You're welcome." Jian Bugui let go of his hands and took a step back. He stroked his no-return sword. The fighting spirit from back then had disappeared. It was as though he was a different person. Yi Qinghan knew Jian Bugui too well. Otherwise, he would have thought that he had been possessed. Since you insist on walking your own path, I can't help you much. I can let you feel the power of the universe. Jian Bugui thought for a while and said calmly. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed as he nodded. All right. Hua. Yi Qinghan stood up and looked at Jian Bugui. He really wanted to know what the power of the universe was like. If the original universe didn't recognize him and he couldn't use the power of the universe, he could first comprehend it and then use it by force. Jian Bugui's fingertips trembled slightly. He hugged Yi Qinghan from behind and placed his hands on Yi Qinghan's hands. The two closed their eyes and their souls fused together. Jian Bugui's soul was sensing the power of the universe. In a flash, the entire secondary universe seemed to have fused with this universe under his divine intent. Yi Qinghan could clearly sense the power of the secondary universe of the ancient immortal world, but he couldn't use it at all. This is the power of the secondary universe of the ancient immortal world. Next, let's see the power of a dozen secondary universes fusing together. Hua. Boom. In the blink of an eye, Jian Bugui's divine sense was so powerful that it could crush a sage at any time. He gently raised his hand and lifted Yi Qinghan's hand into the sky, as if he could suppress the entire secondary realm with one palm. This could be the power of a virtuous paragon or a pseudo-ruler. Jian Bugui's peak power was at this point. She could mobilize the power of all the secondary universes that recognized her. However, this power couldn't be unleashed at will. She couldn't use this power to kill paragons or destroy the world. Jian Bugui had never used this power before and she didn't want to either. The power of the universe was filled with laws and laws. It poured into Jian Bugui's body. At this moment, she and Yi Qinghan's souls were fused and could sense each other. It was too difficult to understand and mysterious. Her success couldn't be replicated unless Yi Qinghan gave up on his own path and worked hard to gain the recognition of the entire universe. Chapter 30-45. Yi Qinghan and Jian Bugui's souls became one. It was a pure fusion without any distracting thoughts. At this moment, Yi Qinghan also seemed to have fused with the secondary universe. However, he only borrowed Jian Bugui's perception. He couldn't use the power of the secondary universe on his own. After a long time, Yi Qinghan let go of Jian Bugui and fell into silence. At this moment, he understood how far he was from the sovereign realm. It was very, very far. It was so far away that ordinary people would feel despair. However, to Yi Qinghan, it was just 2 steps. Sage, great sage. After taking these 2 steps, it didn't matter whether he could become a sovereign or not. Yi Qinghan meditated in Jingfan Mountain for decades. Every day, he would discuss the Tao with Jian Bugui and comprehend the power of the universe. Sometimes, he would follow Jian Bugui to other secondary universes and watch her do some boring things. In his opinion, what Jian Bugui could do was seriously incompatible with her cultivation. She could have stopped the war, but she didn't want to stop it. She was just calm and saved as many people as she could. Yi Qinghan looked at Jian Bugui and asked curiously, "Why didn't you stop such a meaningless war?" "Existence is the reason. Everyone has their own greed. I shouldn't force my own thoughts onto others," Jian Bugui replied calmly. Yi Qinghan was speechless. He couldn't see through Jian Bugui at all. If it were him, he would have crushed the upper echelons of both sides and forcefully taken over. Then, he would have reorganized according to his will. However, Jian Bugui did nothing. It was two different paths. Two paths that didn't fit together. Finally, Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else. Since he couldn't accept it, he had to walk his own path. Bugui, I should go back, Yi Qinghan said seriously. Jian Bugui smiled and said, go back. You've been with me for too long. You can't learn anything. If you need anything, you can come to me directly. Don't be shy. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and then left. While Yi Qinghan was in Jingfan Mountain, Yi Qinghan brought Jiang Jingtian's son, Jiang Qiufeng, into the star-profound sage Holy Land. Sages usually wouldn't meet people of this level. However, the star-profound sage still met the two of them on account of Yi Qinghan. After listening to Yi Qinghan's will, Xing Xian was silent for a long time. At this time, it was obvious that Fang Xian wanted to deal with Yi Qinghan. Moreover, he was contacting the other sages of the older generation. Therefore, Xing Xian was also considering that once Fang Xian made his move, it would be like a thunderbolt. He would not give Yi Qinghan a chance. It was impossible for the crazed manner to be a match for all the sages working together. Even if the star-profound sage sided with the crazed manner would not be able to win. Lord Sage, my crazy manners Yan Emperor has reached the sage realm. He now has the battle strength of a sage. If you are willing to side with crazy manner, my father has said that you can choose between the Sky Patrol subrealm and the Purple Sun subrealm. Yi Qinghan bowed and said. The star-profound sage smiled and said indifferently, even if Yan Emperor becomes a sage, crazy manner only has 2 sages. Including me, there are only 3 people. 3 against 8. If we can't win, the experts of the 8 great holy lands will all come out. Crazy manner and star-profound sage holy land will be razed to the ground. What about 7 against 4? Yi Qinghan bowed and asked. The star-profound sage's eyes flashed coldly. He stared at Yi Qinghan and asked in a deep voice, did Manor Lord Yi persuade another sage to make a move? Sage, I'm not sure yet, Yi Qinghan replied honestly. The star-profound sage looked at Yi Qinghan and pondered for a long time. The other sages were not scary. At least in his opinion, they were not a big deal. However, Yi Qinghan was different. He could borrow the power of the divine bird and fuse with it. He could surpass the other sages. This kind of person could not be left alive for long. Not only did the star-profound sage want to kill Yi Qinghan, but he also wanted to seize the divine bird and refine this special ruler's origin. Go back and tell Manor Lord Yi that I will make a move at the crucial moment, the star-profound sage said indifferently after pondering for a while. Thank you, Lord Sage. I will take my leave. Yi Qinghan bowed and left the hall. Jiang Qiufeng was waiting outside the Holy Land's training hall. At this moment, Yi Qinghan did not feel that his mission was completed. The star-profound sage's answer was ambiguous. Even if his answer was firm, it could be seen from his tone that he could change his mind at any time. Let's go back first, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. At the same time, Di Longtian and Lin Shukom, the 2 first and second generation experts, crossed the Qiu Tian domain and arrived at the Purple Sun subrealm. In the Qianni sacred ground, the 2 of them trekked through mountains and rivers and entered the Qianni sacred grounds training hall in an extremely low-key manner. Qianni Xue was currently receiving a visit from Fang Xian, the new sage. The last person Fang Xian visited was Qianni Xue. The reason why he put her last was naturally because there was something more important. Marriage alliance. Fang Xian actually wanted to marry Qianni Xue. Qianni Xue looked at Fang Xian with disbelief in her eyes. She felt that she had misheard. Fang Xian, you are really bold. I am from the same generation as your father. You actually want to marry me? Are you still dreaming? Also, can you tell me how Sage Fang Yu died? Qian Yixue scolded coldly. Fang Xian smiled. He did not look sad at all because of his father's death. He was a typical smiling tiger. Qian Yixue, I have liked you since a long time ago. However, due to my identity and status, I did not dare to confess to you. However, it is different now. I have inherited all the power of a sage. Coupled with my own combat strength, I can completely defeat Yi Qinghan with my current strength. If you marry me, the entire subrealm will be ours, Fang Xian said with a smile. Qian Yixue snorted and waved her hand. You can go back. I am already old. I no longer care about personal matters. Fang Xian said shamelessly, Qian Yixue, there's no need to reject me so quickly. If you think that I'm not strong enough, I don't mind proving it to you. Yi Qinghan is like the sun in the sky, but I can crush him with a single step. Qian Yixue sneered. She did not know much about Yi Qinghan's strength. However, Little White Cloud was probably enough to defeat Fang Xian. Come and talk to me after you defeat Yi Qinghan. Qian Yixue said coldly. Fang Xian smiled arrogantly and said, then it is settled. When I bring Yi Qinghan's head back, I hope Sage Qian Yixue will not reject this junior's love. Qian Yixue could sense Fang Xian's strength. Not only did he absorb Sage Fang Yu's power, but he also surpassed him. His combat strength might not lose to Yi Qinghan's. If Yi Qinghan did not have Little White Cloud, he might not be able to win. Whoosh! Fang Xian turned around arrogantly and left the hall. He happened to see Di Longtian and Lin Shukom, the two experts of Kuang Manor. He did not know them, but they were wearing Kuang Manor's robes and the tokens on their waists were also Kuang Manor's tokens. Fang Xian stared at the two and clenched his fists. He said coldly, before I kill Yi Qinghan, I will first satisfy my cravings with the two of you. I will also let Yi Qinghan understand that I, Fang Xian, am not to be trifled with. Whoosh! With a thought, Fang Xian's killing intent enveloped the two. The two were shocked and immediately drew their swords. However, how could they fight against a sage as progenitors? Wait! Envoys are not killed when two armies fight. Moreover, they are here to visit this palace. If you kill them here, won't you be accusing me of being heartless and unjust? Fang Xian, you better not mess around in this palace. Qian Yixue scolded in dissatisfaction. Fang Xian sneered and stared at Qian Yixue. Chapter 3046. Fang Xian stared at Qian Yixue with murderous intent. Even a sage from the previous generation shuddered. Fang Xian was too strong. He relied on his actions to gain merit points. He wasn't a virtuous paragon but he was much stronger than an ordinary sage. Add to that his own strength and sage power, Qian Yixue knew she wasn't his match. Qian Yixue took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, what's the point of a sage competing with two juniors? If you really want to show off your power, then go kill Yi Qinghan for me to see. Don't make me look down on you. Fang Xian sneered and turned to Di Longtian and Lin Shukom. He said in a hoarse voice, I will spare your lives for the sake of Saint Qian Yixue. But if you kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times, I will let you go. Die. Di Longtian coldly replied. Lin Shukom pulled out his sword and glared at Fang Xian. He could die today but not kneel. You two ants, I gave you a chance to live but you didn't. Fang Xian's murderous intent surged again. He waved his hand to kill the two. Qian Yixue's bone whip shook and turned into a bone sword. She coldly stared at Fang Xian and said firmly, Fang Xian, if you want to make a move today, you'll have to step over my dead body. Fang Xian frowned. The evil and cold glint in his eyes made people shudder. Sage Qian Yishue, why did these two from Insane Prefecture come to your sacred ground? Could it be that you've fallen for Yi Qinghan? Fang Xian questioned. Qian Yishue angrily rebuked, sacred grounds often interact with each other. What does my relationship with Insane Prefecture have to do with you? Can other sacred grounds also say that you have an affair with other sages when they visit your sacred ground? Ha ha ha. Fang Xian's expression changed very quickly, from a cold expression to a hearty laugh, but that fake smile made people feel very uncomfortable. Sage Qian Yishue, it's best to chase these two out. Insane Prefecture will collapse within 20 years. No one will be able to protect you if you stay with them. Fang Xian sneered. Qian Yishue replied unhappily, it's none of your business. I'd like to see how you're going to make Quang Manor collapse in 20 years. Ha 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 ha, ga. Fang Xian was so angry that he laughed and soared into the sky. Then open your eyes wide and take a good look. Yi Qinghan is nothing compared to all the heroes in the world. I can destroy a person who relies on a spiritual pet to fight against a sage with a wave of my hand. Whoosh! Space distorted and Fang Xian disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Di Longtian and Lin Shukong clenched their fists as they looked in the direction Fang Xian had disappeared. They had a very bad feeling in their hearts. Su Kong, mobilize the Assassin Legion and notify the Insane Manor as soon as possible. We need to prevent Fang Xian from launching a surprise attack on the Insane Manor, Di Longtian said in a low voice. Lin Shukong nodded and bowed to Qian Yishue. Thank you, Lord Sage, for speaking up for me. I have some matters to attend to, so I shall take my leave. Qian Yishue nodded and said, be careful, this Fang Xian is really crazy. Lin Shukong quietly retreated, leaving behind Di Longtian, the only expert of a generation who was traveling outside. Di Longtian considered himself a junior and bowed. Junior Di Longtian is here to visit Lord Sage under the orders of the Insane Manor Lord. I hope we can mend our relationship with your sacred ground and form an alliance. Qian Yishue's fingers trembled as a trace of helplessness appeared on her mature face. She said in a low voice, if the Insane Manor doesn't improve in these years, I'm afraid it will be very dangerous. Fang Xian has already convinced a few other sages to attack the Insane Manor. In terms of numbers, the other side is enough to suppress your Insane Manor. My attitude is no longer important. Di Longtian was shocked. He didn't think that the sages of the secondary universe would act faster than Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Di Longtian bowed again and said, what the Mansion Lord means is that if both sides suffer heavy losses, he hopes that Lord can lend a hand. If possible, the Insane Manor will definitely repay you. I know, but I don't dare to give a definite answer. Qian Yishue waved her hand. As far as I know, the other sacred grounds have already mobilized their experts and are ready to set off for the ancient immortal subworld. You should go back too. Di Longtian sighed. None of the 9 sages would gamble with their lives. Qian Yishue was the same. Junior will take his leave. Di Longtian bowed. Qian Yishue waved her hand and didn't say anything else. At this moment, at least 5 sages from the Purple Sun subworld and the Sky Survey subworld moved. The Turtle Sage, Heaven-Blessed Sage, Fang Xian Sage, Shrouding Sky Sage, and Sangmu Sage led the experts of the 5 sacred grounds. Their goal was simple, to completely raze the Insane Manor to the ground. The other 4 sages' attitudes were vague. No one knew who they would help. The Star Profound Sage didn't say anything, nor did Qian Yishue. Xiao Yu Sage didn't appear, and Redbud Sage didn't appear. However, with 5 sages working together, even if Yan Emperor stepped into the sage realm, the Insane Manor would only have 2 sages. As soon as Lin Shukong entered the sky-seeking domain, he saw a large army coming from afar. It was the army led by Tsangmu Sage. They were heading towards the ancient immortal subworld. Lin Shukong didn't dare to stay for long. He increased his speed and rushed forward. However, it was clear that this wasn't the only sacred ground rushing towards the ancient immortal subworld. Lin Yan had just finished reorganizing all the forces in the Sky Survey subworld when there was a big change at the border. The Turtle Sage personally led a large group of experts here, forcibly commandeering the chaotic heavenly domain and entering the Seeking Heaven domain. Lin Yan didn't send anyone. He went to the Sky Seeking domain personally. The speed of the army was obviously slower than Lin Yan's personal speed. Lin Yan borrowed the Star Profound Sacred Ground's Primal Chaos Heavenly Domain and paid a large amount of money. Lin Yan rushed to the Insane Manor Immortal Kingdom day and night and arrived at the Sky Seeking domain even earlier than Lin Shukong. After the Qi Tian region received the news, a message arrow shot into the void, shaking the heavens and the earth. This kind of message arrow was only used in an emergency. A moment later, the main cities in all directions followed suit. Yi Qinghan just returned to the heaven-suppressing palace and saw the news. He couldn't help but frown. Feng Xian and the other sages of the secondary universes couldn't hold back anymore. But I wonder how many sages are making a move this time. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and murmured. Spies were quickly sending back news from all directions. The assassin army was busier than ever before. Many experts from the secondary universes were on the move and their target was the Insane Manor Immortal Kingdom. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. Obviously, the Insane Manor was too outstanding. They had no choice but to work together against them. Yi Qinghan stepped onto the sky-gazing mountain and ordered the Against Heaven's Daos to cross the ancient immortal world. The experts of the Insane Manor who were still cultivating were instantly awakened, including Yen Emperor. Whine. Boom. The Yen Emperor's great way was above the firmament. The sage's might was vast and mighty. Although he was not a sage, his aura was even more threatening than a sage's. Chapter 30-47. Before the 5 sacred grounds gathered, Quang Manor was the first to do so. Quang Manor's army, which had not been mobilized for many years, was once again reorganized. Their aura was still as majestic and uniform as before. Even if the army was a few times stronger than Quang Manor's army, it was still nothing in front of them. Quang Manor's forces were mainly concentrated in the East's Chaos Heavenly Domain and North Xiong Celestial Empire's North Xiong City. The West was not connected to Chiu Heaven Domain, making it impossible for the enemy to come from there. As for the South, Jingfan Mountain had Jian Bugue. She might not take the initiative to attack, but if the enemy wanted to invade Heaven-suppressing Palace, they would have to go through Jingfan Mountain. Yi Qinghan was stationed outside the Chaos Heavenly Domain. At this moment, the 5 Sacred Grounds army had yet to reach the ancient immortal world's entrance. They were still far away and since they did not declare war on Quang Manor, Yi Qinghan naturally could not attack them one by one. Yi Qinghan led half of Quang Manor's older generation while Yen Emperor led the other half. Even Jian Qinxue and Green Lotus Sword Saint were preparing for battle. Saint Extreme Thieving Heaven had been hiding in Quang Manor Celestial Empire all these years. He often asked Zhang Daoling for advice, which gave him a clearer understanding of the sage's power. Although he was not a sage yet, he was far stronger than the others, except for Yen Emperor and Yi Qinghan. After all, once he cast his Space 9 level profound, no one could see him. He could easily restrain a sage, and if he was lucky, he could even severely injure one. Although Yan Yunbei's battle prowess wasn't the best, his destructive power was. After years of hard work, he focused on studying the Space 9 layers of Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven. He had almost completely grasped it and surpassed it. However, he didn't learn any thieving techniques. Qitian Monkey King, Gu Qingyu, Mu Zhuang, Lin Wutian, Green Lotus Sword Saint, Jian Qinxue, Jiang Jingtian, Sui Shuguang, Feng Huang, Mo Li, Li Feng, and Stan Wuxia were still the core strength of Quang Manor. No one could surpass them. However, the new juniors, Lin Mo and Yi Tong, had caught up with the second-generation experts. Together with Yi Qinqing, Hua Ling Tian, and Li Peiza, Quang Manor could hold up half the sky. The army was still under the command of the top military great sages. The Chess Saint, Void Saint Chess, Lu Outyen, and Di Long Tian each had their own duties. The Chess Saint and his son were in charge of the first and second camps of the heaven-conquering camp. Lu Outyen was still in charge of the inner and outer sects of the Quang Manor. Di Long Tian was in charge of the ancient massacre god. Yi Qinghan looked at the army and said in a low voice, "This battle is the final battle. At least for all of you, if you win this battle, you won't have to fight in the future. If you lose, then you won't have to fight anymore." Against virtuous paragons, no matter how many people there were, they wouldn't be enough. The location of this battle would definitely be the Qiu Heaven Realm and the Primal Universe. Ha ha ha, my crazy manor army will definitely win this battle. Lu Outyen laughed loudly. Roar. The army roared and bellowed, "We will win this battle." Whoosh. The ancient killing god had the will of the ancient killing god. At this moment, they were all in sync, and their battle intent soared to the sky. At this time, Lin Xiankong and Di Long Tian were returning from the Violet Sun subworld. They ran all the way without stopping and appeared at the barrier of the Chaos Heavenly Realm. "Boss, Feng Xian's power is beyond our imagination. He refined all of Sage Feng Yu's power and even obtained some fake merit points, causing his battle prowess to approach the virtuous Paragon realm. Even Sage Qian Yixue doesn't dare to fight against him." Di Long Tian rushed over and hurriedly said. Yi Qinghan's aura was very calm. In the end, Feng Xian was not a virtuous paragon and only had fake merit points. If the laws of the secondary universe couldn't distinguish between real and fake merit points, then it would be too ridiculous. "It's fine, I can kill this person," Yi Qinghan confidently replied. Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi could kill a sage by working together. With little white support, killing Feng Xian wouldn't be a problem. The problem was that he hoped that the other sages wouldn't interfere while he was killing Feng Xian. Old Yen, the enemy will definitely split into two groups. One will come from the north while the other will come from the primal universe. With Feng Xian's personality, he will definitely come this way. Once I go all out to kill him, you must stop one of the sages. At most, there will be 3 or 4 sages here. At that time, Senior Zhang will restrain one while everyone else will risk their lives to stop the other. Got it. Yan Yunbei's voice had arrived, but no one knew where he was. Meanwhile, at North Hun City, Flame King was still racing against time. He was only half a step away from refining the ruler's origin. Once he did so, he would be able to activate great merit points and become a true virtuous paragon. Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven was hiding in the middle of the army with one leg crossed over the other. He was eating chicken legs and drinking immortal wine in a very uncomfortable manner. Come, come, come. Chess Sage, don't be so nervous. Have a drink with this old man. Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven grinned and showed his row of big teeth as he said arrogantly. Chess Sage said indifferently, "When did you see me nervous? The battle between two armies is always the most exciting time for me. TSK, 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 your strength is nothing much, but you are more arrogant than me." Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven said indifferently. Chess Sage sneered and said confidently, "With 10 million soldiers, I can exhaust you to death. As long as you fall into my formation, I guarantee that you won't be able to escape." Ha ha ha, Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven laughed wildly. His mouth was covered in grease as he bared his teeth and said, very bold. "Let's see how you will stop a sage later." Chess Sage shook his head and said indifferently, "Stopping a sage will result in a lot of casualties. However, stopping you won't result in a lot of casualties. In my formation, it is already not bad if you can use 30% of your 9th level space profound. Your lethality is not as good as a sage's. You have to admit this. Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven was very dissatisfied and said provocatively, after this daddy kills a sage, I will challenge Chess Sage's vortex formation when I have the time. Dong, 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 duh, duh, duh. At this moment, the war drums outside rumbled. It was so loud that it could be heard clearly from two main cities. The army was quickly mobilized. There was no need for Chess Sage as the commander could complete the mobilization. The Bone Sage was still the commander. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The war flags fluttered in the wind as the formation of the army changed unpredictably. The flags of Quang Manor and Heaven Conquering Camp were raised at the same time and fluttered in the wind. On the North Road, Sanmu Sage and Heaven Bestowed Sage had joined forces and led an army of 10 million. They did not want to be tainted with too much karma, so they needed the army to kill for them and wipe out the base of Quang Manor. They only needed to kill the upper echelons and core forces of Quang Manor. On the East Road, Fang Xian, Ancestor Turtle, and Fu Tian did not lead a large army. They were all top experts of the Holy Lands. Their goal was simple, to wipe out Quang Manor and leave no one alive. They wanted to remove the belief and will of Quang Manor. Boom! The seals of the heaven-seeking domain and primal chaos domain were directly broken. Fang Xian walked over forcefully. Although he was from the younger generation, he actually had the aura of a sage. Yi Qinghan stood at the center of the heaven-seeking domain and primal chaos domain. Seeing the three sages walk over, especially Fang Xian's smiling face, Yi Qinghan could not help but clench his fists. He really wanted to beat this guy up. Yi Qinghan, I made a bet with Sage Qian Yixue. The wager is her. If I can raise Quang Manor to the ground in 20 years, she will marry me. Do you think I can do it? Fang Xian laughed and asked. Yi Qinghan replied indifferently, you can't do it. I dare to bet with you again. You won't live for more than 3 days if the other sages don't act. Chapter 30-48. In the heaven-seeking domain, the chaos of the Order of Chaos was terrifying, and it was all stirred up by the sages. Yi Qinghan blocked the entrance alone, and with a simple sentence, Fang Xian was forced to fight first. In order to become the number one under Virtuous Paragon, one had to defeat either Yi Qinghan or the Flaming King. Fang Xian grinned sinisterly. Ha ha ha, you want me dead in 3 days? You've got guts, but don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. You'll have to watch me raise Quang Manor to the ground, and then watch me marry the Sage Beauty. Although she's old, she's still a beautiful woman. It'll be more fun to play with her, ha 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 ha. Fang Xian laughed wildly. Yi Qinghan sneered. He didn't hide his strength. He also had merit. He had built the Crazy Manor for so many years, from a small plane to the current Crazy Manor Immortal Kingdom. None of the merit he had accumulated was fake. Boom! Rumble! Yi Qinghan's aura was majestic and his merit aura was vast. He was like a war Buddha. His gentle movement shook the entire insane heaven. Sun Chaser, do you have the guts to fight me and my boss? If you beat me, we'll call you grandson. If you lose, you'll call me grandpa, how about it? Supreme Yi hasn't fused with Yi Qinghan yet. He stood on Yi Qinghan's shoulder in his true form and proudly shouted. Good, I'm looking forward to hearing you call me grandpa. Fang Xian grinned. Yi Qinghan was disdainful. It wasn't easy for a sage to gain such a verbal advantage. The Turtle Ancestor and Shroud Sage couldn't help but laugh. This Fang Xian was indeed powerful, but he was like a nouveau riche without any foundation. It was obvious at a glance that he was so arrogant that he didn't even know what Supreme Yi was talking about. The Turtle Ancestor carried a large cauldron on his back. This was a turtle shell that had been refined for countless years. Even a sage's weapon couldn't pierce through it. This kind of person couldn't be killed unless a virtuous paragon could kill him. Shroud Sage had never revealed his true strength, so no one knew how strong he was. Yi Qinghan glanced at the two and said, "Old Yen, watch Shroud Sage. Today, Fang Xian and I will have a fair fight. No matter who wins or loses, you're not allowed to interfere. If you do, kill without mercy." Yan Yunbei specialized in assassination while the turtle ancestor specialized in defense. Yan Yunbei definitely couldn't kill the turtle ancestor, so arranging him to restrain Shroud Sage was the best arrangement. "Don't worry, if you can defeat Sage today, I'll leave immediately and never to oppose the insane mansion." Sage Turtle's dignified eyes had a trace of luck. He was a completely opportunistic person. He would side with whoever had the upper hand. He was definitely an old fox. Sage Shrouding Heaven had a head of white hair, but he didn't have the demeanor of an immortal. The sinister light in his eyes caused one to shiver. He didn't say anything, but he had already made a decision. Yi Qinghan gestured with his hand. "Fang Xian, as long as you don't run, you won't live past tonight." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi merged. Their sage aura surged and pushed back the chaotic energy created by the three sages. Then, they stepped into the depths of the sky-seeking domain. Roar! Fang Xian was furious. His murderous intent surged. His chilling aura sent chills down people's spines. At this moment, Qian Yixue was hiding in the depths. At the same time, Xiaoyu Sage and Redbud Sage were also inside the sky-seeking domain. However, they didn't approach and were waiting for an opportunity. Their attitudes weren't clear. Perhaps they wanted to kill Yi Qinghan or Fang Xian, or perhaps both. None of this was important. The important thing was that Fang Xian and Yi Qinghan had entered the sky-seeking domain's primal chaos origin. This place was filled with ravines and black holes. Everything was in a barbaric state. No one had ever set foot here before. And this place was the most suitable battlefield for the two of them. Little white cloud wrapped around Yi Qinghan's limbs. Thin threads wandered around his body. With Yi Qinghan's peak strength, it was almost equivalent to three sages working together. In addition to Yi Qinghan's boundless merit, his combat power reached its peak. Hum! Whoosh! The 7-foot heavy saber appeared in Yi Qinghan's palm. It was made of the primal chaos origin and was indestructible. When the wind blew, the saber's blade whistled. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and sensed the power of the sky-seeking domain and the primal universe. It wasn't that he couldn't sense the universe's power, but it was too little. He couldn't compare to Jian Bugui, but he was definitely stronger than Fang Xian. The power of the universe he sensed was increased by dozens of times by Little White Cloud. Whoosh! In an instant, the energy in the depths of the sky-seeking domain exploded. Black holes appeared, and the large ones swallowed the small ones. Even the ravines were penetrated. Hiss! Fang Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. He realized that he couldn't even use the power of the sages. What kind of power is this? Fang Xian took a few steps back. He realized that the order of the surroundings had changed. He even took a few steps back. Yi Qinghan was fully focused on sensing the universe's power. If a sage attacked him from behind, he would be the first to die. It definitely wouldn't be Fang Xian. Rise! Yi Qinghan didn't answer Fang Xian. He slowly raised the heavy saber and slashed out 18 times in an instant. It was like 18 afterimages. The saber radiance rushed to the peak of the universe. Boom! 18 figures could be seen clearly. Each slash contained the power of the universe. In an instant, they merged into one and formed a single blade. It soared into the sky and split the sky-seeking domain. In the blink of an eye, it was above Fang Xian. This is the power of a sage. Boom! Whoosh! The sky-seeking domain was so stable that even the sages couldn't make it collapse. However, at this moment, the sky-seeking domain was believed to have created a huge black hole. It merged with the other ravines and primordial black holes and swallowed everything. It instantly affected an entire star field. If Yi Qinghan and Fang Xian weren't close to the army and the sky-seeking domain, even the sky-seeking domain in the ancient immortal world would have been swallowed. Boom boom boom. The chaotic energy rolled, wave after wave. No one dared to resist this kind of aftershock. Fang Xian was shocked. He was confident that he could suppress Yi Qinghan. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to still have a trick up his sleeve. The sage's sword split into three. The three flowers at one's prominence formed a word shape and attacked 7-foot berserk. In the primordial chaos of the universe, the two flames collided and the order of all things collapsed. Boom! Bang! Yi Qinghan's saber contained the truth of heaven and earth and the power of the universe. It forcefully split the three flowers at one's prominence and swept Fang Xian into the huge black hole. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Fang Xian's hair stood on end. His divine sword pierced through the order behind him in an attempt to stabilize his body. However, the void collapsed from the impact. His bones were shattered and blood flowed endlessly. Yi Qinghan's attack was powerful, but only he knew that he couldn't use the power of the universe after this attack. However, Fang Xian was injured and his Dao heart collapsed. He probably didn't dare to fight anymore. I want you dead at midnight. No one can keep you alive until midnight. Boom! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan gave up on using the power of the universe. He turned into 18 shadows and no longer gathered. Instead, he split into 18 different directions and attacked Fang Xian. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. Each strike was as fast as lightning. However, since Fang Xian had devoured all of Sage Fang Yu's power, he couldn't be useless. Each strike struck Yi Qinghan's shadows. The saber and sword were like smoke and extremely fast. Chapter 30-49. Yi Qinghan's state dropped after the first attack. He could not be compared to Jian Bugui at all. Jian Bugui could mobilize the power of the universe at any time, but he had to maintain a high level of concentration. If the first attack did not kill the opponent, he would switch to the second attack. His state would drop immediately and he would return to his proper state. However, his proper state was not something an ordinary sage could handle. The sage power surged, and in an instant, thousands of sword shadows appeared. Although they were all blocked by Fang Xian was covered in blood and his bones were shattered. Boom! Yi Qinghan knocked away the sage sword and kicked Fang Xian's chest. He was unstoppable. Even the sage body could not block Yi Qinghan's kick. The kick sent him flying. His back bulged, and the kick almost pierced through his chest. Poof! Fang Xian spat out a mouthful of essence blood, but the sword in his hand did not stop. With a flip of his wrist, the sword slashed down from above, directly at Yi Qinghan's ankle. Boom! Boom! This sword was enough to split the heavens and earth, but it did not cut Yi Qinghan's ankle. Sparks flew, and Yi Qinghan's body flipped in the void. Impossible, Fang Xian roared, I am the world's greatest sage. How can this sword not cut through your defense? This sword slashed on the ankle guard formed by the little white cloud, but even through the little white cloud, Yi Qinghan's leg bone cracked, and blood flowed non-stop. Boom! Yi Qinghan's sword slashed on the chaotic rock. He stepped on the primordial chaos and stood firmly. He held the 7 feet berserk in his hand, and a cold light shot out. Zeng zeng zeng, poof poof. Fang Xian retreated more than 100 miles, and looked at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. This battle made him very confused. Yi Qinghan's first attack was completely unmatched, and he was caught off guard. And his last attack did not cut through Yi Qinghan's defense. This was even more incomprehensible. Yi Qinghan's murderous intent intensified. This person could not be left alive. Now that Fang Xian was dead, the other sage's intentions could be severed. Hum. Roar. Zhong Kuang flipped his blade, taking advantage of the victory to pursue and attack. You're number one in the world. Today, I'll show you the true power of the sage. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan once again used the 18 saber techniques. The 9 levels of space profound meaning appeared, and each saber slashed out from a different space. It looked like an instantaneous attack, but only one of them had the ability to actually attack. However, Fang Xian felt a chill run down his spine. Boom. Bang. Fang Xian was flustered. He instantly activated the power of the sage to seal the area, but Yi Qinghan broke through it with lightning speed. Seal, Yi Qinghan let out a low roar. The order of the 10,000 mantras pressed down on him from all directions. Just like how Jian Bugui had defeated him in one move, he was now using it on Fang Xian. Whoosh! The blade tip shone with cold light, sweeping across Qiu Tian region, so fast that it was impossible to stop it. Puchi! Fang Xian could not even raise his hand. The sword in his hand was as heavy as the universe. His limbs and bones were imprisoned. The blade slashed across his waist, and blood splattered everywhere. Puchi, the sword in Fang Xian's hand almost slipped out. His body rolled in the beginning of chaos, looking extremely pathetic. Die! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Boom boom boom! Yi Qinghan's saber turned into thousands of saber shadows, attacking from all directions, completely surrounding Fang Xian. Bang! Fang Xian made a last-ditch effort to counterattack, repelling Yi Qinghan's every attack. However, the moment Yi Qinghan flew backward, Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi separated. Hum! Puchi! Supreme Grandpa is here. Die, boom! Supreme Yi pierced Fang Xian's chest with his sword, then kicked him in the chest. He borrowed the force to fly backward, returning to Yi Qinghan's side. Ha ha ha, Supreme Yi's move was successful. He immediately leaned forward and backward, laughing wickedly. Fang Xian was directly pierced by Supreme Yi's sword. Even the sage's body could not be repaired. Even the sage could not fight against the sovereign order. If Supreme Yi's defense and ability were strong enough, he would be the strongest. Unfortunately, he could only rely on sneak attacks. Boss, this kind of trash dares to call himself the world's #1 sage? I'm dying of laughter, ha ha ha. Supreme Yi laughed wickedly. Yi Qinghan smiled sinisterly. Fang Xian was now heavily injured and did not have much combat strength. Even if the other two sages joined forces to attack, it would not be a big deal. I told you, you won't live past today. Buzz! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed, and his body separated. The saber shadows shattered the beginning of chaos. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi no longer merged. Instead, they joined forces to attack, surrounding Fang Xian so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Puchi! Boom! Fang Xian was continuously injured. He could defend against Yi Qinghan, but he could not defend against Supreme Yi. The key was that the damage caused by Supreme Yi could not be reversed and was difficult to repair. Therefore, he could only defend against Supreme Yi. However, Yi Qinghan's attack was thunderous, suffocating him with one strike. Boom! This slash split heaven and earth. It contained the fusion of Yi Qinghan's 18 slashes. It directly cut through the sage battle robe and injured his bones. Crack! Fang Xian's body bent, and his spine was cut off. Supremacy Yi pushed Fang Xian's saint sword away with his sword and kicked him in the face, causing Fang Xian's face to deform. At that moment, Sage Shrouding Sky drew his sword and attacked. He came this time to kill Yi Qinghan. How could he allow Yi Qinghan to kill Fang Xian? At the very least, both sides had to be injured so that he could benefit from it. The sword swayed in all directions. The pitch-black sky instantly shone brightly, and the universe's black hole seemed to be pierced through. When the sage sword appears, the world will submit. Shrouding Sky's sword was enough to make all living things submit and destroy the heavenly Tao. That was how it got the name, Shrouding Sky. Just as he made his move, a cold light pierced through the clouds and a dagger appeared behind Sage Shrouding Heaven's back. Yan Yunbei had been waiting for this attack for a long time. He had been accumulating his power and was definitely at his peak. Puchi. Whoosh. Sage Shrouding Sky's flower plume was cut off, but it did not hurt his flesh. Sage Shrouding Sky reacted quickly. His figure flashed and escaped countless miles away. There was a white scar on his back that gradually turned purple. Humph. Sage Shrouding Sky grunted. Sage power surged and forced the poison out of his back. The corpse bug left his body and withered. Ant. How dare you sneak attack me? Sage Shrouding Sky roared. He drew his sword and walked again, stabbing at the place where Yan Yunbei disappeared. Hua! Yan Yunbei disappeared again without a trace. The 9 levels of space profundity could be displayed at its peak in the sky-seeking domain. He had already surpassed his master and was not inferior to extreme Saint Thieving Heaven. Sage Shrouding Sky did not see Yan Yunbei's appearance and thought it was extreme Saint Thieving Heaven. Thieving Heaven, you are truly courageous. You offended Songmu and Tianzong, and now you dare to offend me. Sage Shrouding Sky roared. Boom! Een! Shwa 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 shwa, Sage Shrouding Sky attacked indiscriminately, shattering the sky-seeking domain. However, he was still too late because Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi worked together to stabilize the situation. Sage Shrouding Sky's blade pierced Fang Xian's chest while Supreme Yi's flaming sword pierced Fang Xian's throat, firmly restraining him. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.